Such a thing.
And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 1-year anniversary of Game Theory Gang, episode number 52. I'm Maddie Allen, and we have Brisology here. Hexfire.io will be joining us shortly, but our special guest tonight is GammaDevOps. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Now, as a responsible YouTuber, I want to point out that GammaDevOps is here to talk about being a PulseChain validator. And so we're going to be really respectful because I feel very honored that you're willing to come on the show and talk to us about this important topic. So if you're like me and you're excited to learn something new tonight, hit the like and subscribe button. And I think we're going to do a survey later on in the YouTube program to ask people, are you, based on what you're learning tonight, are you wanting to be a PulseChain validator? And so that'll be really exciting. And I know we got a couple other really good topics for you tonight. So how are you guys doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been having a great week. It just seems like we're just winning in this crypto sphere, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting things happening, sooner rather than later. Try and stay busy, right? It's a bear market, right?
Crazy things going on in the world where,
Oh, exciting. The USDC depegging event. Well, very exciting times.
A mass exodus out of cash into cryptos.
What, right. An entity bought it like 88 cents or something. I wonder about that one.
Yeah. Nice. Well, tons of people tuned in, and shout out to everybody who tuned in for my emergency live streams in between my normal streams this past week. I did one with Tangent that had 7,200 people tune in. We were covering live the PulseChain sacrifice address and PulseX sacrifice address, throwing USDT and USDC around like it was going out of style, and accumulating a bunch of DAI. So that was really interesting. And then we did more coverage last night. We had some great OGs on. We had Axis Live, Funding Gym, and Johnny Chaos popped on. So that was a powerhouse stream that we did last night for 2.5 hours before RG3 interviewed Gregory Mannarino, which is a really intelligent macro guy. So lots of good content this week already. And so I think Brisology has the first topic here that we're going to be getting into.
Yeah, no. So some crazy things happened during the week. I for one actually got fudded out of USDC, and because I had dry powder on the sidelines, and so I got rid of that, and I put it into other cryptos, including HEX and Ethereum, and I like to think I got fudded into mad gains. I actually I went in at like an 8% loss. I was like, it was on Sunday. I was like, I don't know if what's gonna happen on Monday. I don't know if they're gonna get bailed out. And so I converted them at an 8% loss. But now everything's pumping like 15% plus. So I'm pretty happy about that. But one of the crazy things that kind of happened during this time was somebody also got fudded out, and they tried to transfer $2 million of the Curve Finance like stable coin, I guess.
It's so it's an LP token actually. It's called and 3CRV. It's an LP token.
And I just wanted to get your opinion on it, Gamma, because I know you're a lot more technical on this stuff, and just I'm just wondering like the guy is claiming that there was a bug, and the Kyber network is saying no. I think you fat fingered it.
Well,
And what do you think?
Here's the problem. So we all are aware of swapping like one ERC20 token for another ERC20 token, and there's an LP pool. What this gentleman did, I'm going to assume it's a gentleman, right? No, could be a lady, who knows? But they're trading an LP token, a curve LP token, and trying to get USDT out of it, which is something that nobody would really consider doing. So this person wasn't in the right mind when they decided that they were going to trade an LP token for an ERC20 token.
There's not
as
a
you
lot
can
of
imagine,
liquidity
the LP, the pools for such a token swap would be very, very thin. And in this case, I think it was like $2 or something. So there happened to be a $2 liquidity pool created for this LP pool paired to USDT, which isn't a thing that would normally exist. I've
It
never
was a
actually
trap,
seen it before. Maybe, but 2 million. So what the person should have done is they should have exited their LP position, gotten whatever token. Could have been DAI. It could have been. I mean, they have it's a DAI USDT LP token. So I don't know what asset they would have gotten out if they had exited. They probably would have got a combination of them.
Is that like an NFT? Is that what?
Well, it's a Uni V2, right? If you add liquidity into, say, a Uni V2 pool, then you get a token that represents your share of the liquidity in that pool. So I mean,
and it looks like an NFT, right?
It's kind of like an NFT, but it's right. But it's there's a number of them. I mean, people have said that they're an NFT, but they look pretty fungible to me. Like everybody who's in this pool has a similar NFT that's pretty fungible to me, right? They all represent a share, right? It represents a share of the LP position. So what this person, well, like I said, what they should have done is they should have exited the LP, like got their tokens back, and then decided which one they wanted, and then gone back into the swap and swapped out, the USDC for USDT or whatever swap they wanted to do. So it wasn't a bug on Kyber Swap's end. You can imagine if you were trying to trade an LP position for USDT, that's why there's only $2 of liquidity in that pool. It's not routing to anything else because nothing else exists for it to trade against, right? How most Uniswap, right, pairs work is it will route through 2 or 3 different hops to find the best route for your trade. But those are all ERC20 tokens. There's going to be pools across many of them, and it just calculates the best rate, the least amount of slippage for you, and then you get, a good rate or relatively good rate. In this case, that was impossible.
Yeah. So sounds like he just really made a bad decision.
It was a very, very bad decision. I don't know what made him think this was going to turn out well. So he got in a rush. Would it be a thing? And he saw that there's liquidity, but then even when you look at the pools, it tells you you're going to sell this amount and you're going to get this much back, and it tells you the slippage and it tells you how much you're going to get back. So this guy really was panicked at the worst possible time, and he panicked himself out of $2 million because on the other end of this, there was a bot who picked up $2 million of free money that this person put into the pool, and that bot came up right behind him and then bought it up. So that bot operator really made a killing that day. So unfortunately, it looks like, to me anyway, it looks like the technology worked like it's supposed to. I'd sorry to say user error.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I mean, we don't want to see anybody lose $2 million.
Yeah. No,
but he should have done the step of executing his liquidity position.
Maybe there was alcohol involved, and then the panic of the weekend and you just go, you're not thinking thoroughly.
Brisology, this is not your coinfession, okay?
Mm.
Okay. If you're the one who lost the $2 million, then just say it.
Help me, guys. No, it wasn't me. Come on, I don't have Curve Finance. Curve.
Okay, all right.
I'm not providing liquidity for Curve. So.
Yeah, I haven't really used Curve. I mean, I know how it works, but I haven't. I usually just use Uniswap or 1inch Matcha, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Lastly, I have provided liquidity before, and I noticed like when I went to my OpenSea account and I connected my wallet, it did show a liquidity provision like token. So that's why I was asking if it was like an NFT, because I saw it in there. I don't know. So
it's not. It's of course the LP token isn't the ERC20 standard. It's the 7 something or other standard. That's like an NFT.
And just like Vets in crypto is saying, do not drink and trade.
Yeah, it doesn't end well.
You'll end up in Rexville.
Yeah, unfortunately, it probably worked really hard for that $2 million, and it took an instant for it to go away.
Yeah, that is actually really sad, though.
Well, thanks, Brisology, for bringing that up, because that's a fascinating question that you picked up on. So, very good, very good. And we've got the audience warmed up now. They've had the chance to either hit the like button or get out, as I like to say, jokingly, but also it helps the numbers. So do your part there. And yeah, I think we want to get into our discussion now with GammaDevOps about what's your background, and then we'll get into like what does it mean to be a validator, and maybe then what does that look like?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been playing with the Linux servers for 13 years now. Self-taught programmer. Like I taught myself Python and C and C++ a little bit. I don't write production applications. I've never been hired as a developer, but I like to learn things. So I've spent a lot of time deploying apps that other people have written, which is kind of the DevOps side, kind of the infrastructure side. So in 2017, I was finishing my MBA program, and I was in my last semester. I didn't have a job, looking for like what I'm going to get into, and I had some free time, so I got on the Ethereum website, and then I started running Ethereum full nodes, kind of figuring out what this crypto thing is.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what, this is really interesting. Maybe I could do this. And then I got hired on to a crypto project that failed, but I kind of started doing that. Day one Hexkin. Okay, I was following Richard a year before Hex got out.
Did you have day one FOMO?
I only put two Ethereum in. So I I totally was like kind of poor back then, because I was employed for a while looking for work, the normal thing, right? You lose your job, you get laid off, then you have to work trying to find a job for like 6 months, and then your savings dries up, and then so that happened. During that period of time, I was finished my MBA program. I wasn't working, and then it was a situation of 2017 was when that happened. And then I was looking for work, and then I got hired onto a startup, and then the startup ended up failing. Then I was like unemployed again, and I go 6-9 months of looking for a job, and that led right up into Hex actually launching in December 2019, about a 6-month period where I was looking for work again. And then I got a full-time job in operations, because I've been doing operations because I was in the military for a while. And I got a new job, and then Hex launched like 2 months later. So I literally had maybe $100 at a time, $200 at a time. So every time I got paid, I put $100, $150, whatever I can afford into Hex, into the A. And that's how I got started, like restarted in crypto from 2017. A little bit of money, like 20 grand, not a huge amount. Learned a lot, started at zero again, come into Hex, DCAN, right? Like that thing, right? I recommend people don't put too much in. If you can DCAN, maybe put a month's worth of salary in if you don't know anything, and then play with that, because you can, my talking point, and I think it's very true, is you can recover from a month's worth of salary, and you could lose it all, and you can learn a lot, and you can recover from that. But it's a lot harder to recover from like 250,000, right?
Sure.
If you put a year's worth of salary into something, you better hope that works out, because it's going to be a lot harder to recover. So I recommend people starting with like a month's worth of salary. And I like that number, because it's not really a number, because if you're in wherever you are, you can equate that to like your living standard, like wherever you are, right? In the US, maybe that's maybe 5 or 6,000. If you're in the Philippines, where I know people, that could be 300 or 400, depending on your situation, right?
It's like less than an engagement ring, but it's like you're still going to be around for 15 years. So
it's significant enough that's significant to you. It depends on your life situation. And it's enough to get started and be significant that you can make some gains relative to your starting position, but it's not so much that you can't recover if, like, you get rug pulled, or you have a few missteps along the way when you first start. I think it's a good starting point.
And did you take like a long-term perspective on HEX?
I mean, I'm 15 years staked in a lot. I have most of my stakes are 5 years. I have stakes that are ending 5 years from now, and then 14 years from now, because I did them, like my last 15-year stake was like last year. So between 5 years and 14 years, basically. All my kids have HEX stakes.
Nice.
Many TShares in a 15-year stake that they'll get when they're in their mid-20s. So yeah. I'm pretty bullish on HEX long term. No doubt.
That's what's up. And so you now you've gotten experience running Ethereum 2.0 validators, is that right?
I've been doing it for a year and a half, like almost 2 years, on GoEarly testnet. So I've been running for between a year and a half, 2 years, you know what I mean? What is it today? Yep. Today withdrawals should be active on GoEarly Ethereum testnet. The
No way.
Shanghai hard fork should have been initiated. Maybe not yet, but in a few hours by at least. So that's like news. If you're interested in checking out withdrawals, I can do a withdrawal video on what it'll be like for PulseChain on because I'm running GoEarly. I'm running like 100 and something GoEarly Ethereum validators, and then now I can use the withdrawal function and withdraw them.
Well, people who haven't found your YouTube channel yet are in for a treat. I got started with the first couple of hours of your videos. I just started from the beginning, and they're great. You're explaining things in great detail, giving a background on who you are, and talking through each of the issues. So everybody go and look in the description in the YouTube video here. We have a link to GammaDevOps channel. We need to get him to the next level of subscribers. So make sure to take a moment now and go subscribe to his channel.
So all my educational content is on my Substack. So you can see my name, GammaDevOps, Substack.com. And all my tutorials are on my Substack. And then I do have a YouTube channel. So I do the live streams, but it's mostly just commentary. So there's not a lot of walkthroughs there. So if you really want the juice, if you really want the meat of it, then go to the Substack. New videos are maybe 2-week paywalled for like the really, really great ones that take me a while to put together. But then after that, they're free. So most of the videos there are free to watch. All my validator videos are free. Almost everything is free over there. So go ahead and check it out.
That's awesome. Maybe you can give us a breakdown here just of, kind of what it looks like to run a validator. I mean, maybe we could even start with what is a validator? How does ETH 2.0 validating work? How is that different than proof of work?
Yeah. So the way the system works is you have a consensus client that is validators, and it keeps a record of all the people that are validators, all the validators that are active, and then their rewards and who's up in the rotation, and all that information, right? All that metadata is stored in the beacon chain. It's called. It's a consensus environment.
That's right.
In the beacon chain, and then you have Aragon and Geth is the it was the old layer 1 execution environment, and this is where all the data for contracts created, the balances of all the contracts, like who owns what ERC20 token, the state of all the contracts if you're doing yield farming and you enter a stake, or like the HEX, right? HEX contract is down here. You do a HEX stake, then it writes that data and it knows who is staking, what the payout for the day is. All that data is stored in the execution environment, which is the Geth or Aragon client. In tandem, in September, it was the merge, right? And people misunderstand what the merge means. What they think happened is this beacon chain and then there's an execution client were like merged together. That's not true. They're just simply linked. So the beacon chain has a thing called a slot that's every 12 seconds for Ethereum or 10 for PulseChain. And it's paired with a block on the execution environment. So you have a slot up here and you have a block down below. So they're really paired, but whatever. So they're paired together, they're merged, where you have a slot and you have a block that are both paired or linked together. And then there's, as you go along, they're just link in a blockchain, right? We're on blockchain. So you have the beacon chain has 32 slots, which equal a block, right? On the different clients. They're all 12 seconds apart or 10 seconds on PulseChain. And every 32 of them is called an epoch. And what a validator does is a part of the validator network is they all get put into committees, it's called. And so it's a group, it's a subset of the total amount of validators. And then each epoch gets selected, some amount of validators. And one of them for every 32 times gets selected to be, it would be a block producer. They validate a block, they create a block. The different terminology for it, but they're really just taking the transactions that are like active, that are ready to be put into blocks, and they put them in the blocks and they say, this is a good block. And they tell their friends, right? All the peers. And then all the other validators in that committee, the subset of the total amount, will attest that it's a good block. And then so it's 32 of those, like all the validators in that committee say, this is a block I created. And then, oh, by the way, these are good blocks. And then all the people in the committee to be finalized, right? That it's immutable, like it's final, like no changes. More than 69% of the total validators in the committee have to say, these are good blocks. And then overall the epoch, which is every 6.4 minutes, 32 of them say this epoch is final. And so a group of them, that's a lot of economic energy because it's with 32 Ethereum per validator on Ethereum with 32 million on PulseChain. So what they're doing is they're attesting with their economic energy saying this is good blocks because of course they don't want to be slashed. They don't lose any money. They want to earn money instead, right? And you earn money by attesting that other people created blocks and they're good. And by creating the blocks that you're assigned. So being online to create that block will give you, a reward. On Ethereum, it's 3 to 4% per year. On PulseChain, we'll have to see what testnet v3 has to offer. So there's no way to really do ROI specs on what PulseChain is going to give until we see a v3, and then you can see for yourself. You don't even need to run a validator. You can look at other validators and see what they're making, and look at how many validators are on the network, and you can, calculators can be made and people do spreadsheets on what's the rewards and what's break even and in all that stuff. But
what I think that the difference there would be just that PulseChain is producing blocks faster, and so it's copying over the same specs as Ethereum for block rewards.
It's mostly the same. Mostly the same spec as Ethereum. It's 10-second blocks instead of 12-second blocks. It's There's going to be less validators initially, so you're going to be able to get more blocks for yourself to create. So you're going to have, although the price of PLS is going to be lower, then that should be made up by like just being able to produce more blocks. Because right now, like on Go Early, it's like 430 something thousand validators. We could easily have like 100,000 validators, but not like right away. Especially on mainnet. So tens of thousands for sure, hundreds of thousands. We'll see how many people want to be a validator. But my expectation is that there's going to be, if you're a validator, you're going to you get more blocks than say if you're an Ethereum validator. But you're also, the price point to get into PulseChain is going to be a lot lower. So, how many validators are there going to be? When it first launches, you're going to have the opportunity to become a validator much cheaper than if you were going to be a validator on Ethereum. Because right now, Ethereum to be a validator is somewhere around the 30K mark, right? It's 32 times 1,700. So whatever the math is for that. And then, yeah. I mean, it's tens of thousands of dollars. And with PulseChain,
54,000.
See, 54,000 like today. That's how much it takes to be one validator on Ethereum. And with PulseChain, depending on it depends on the price of PLS, right? But the people who sacrificed have a lot of PLS already baked into the system. So any of them can decide to run however many they can run.
32 million Pulse would have been like maybe a little bit less than $3,200 worth of sack points.
Yeah, it's like
I would
between
estimate
$3,000 to $5,000 to like buy into the network when we first launch. Depending on the price of PLS, of course. We don't know what that it's going to be. But yeah, so $3,200 per validator based on, say, a sacrifice price, right? Your points convert to PLS, and that's kind of what you paid.
So that's 17 times cheaper,
right? That's what you sacrificed to get your points. And so, like, that's a pretty decent price point, like 10 times less than Ethereum, right?
17 times less, yeah.
See, 17 times less.
So, it's not an amount of money that you can just shrug off. It's like, this is like a chunk of change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying relative to Ethereum, it's a lot less. It's still significant for people, but it's a lot less than it would be if you want to be an Ethereum validator on the ground floor of a new network with the same technology that Ethereum's running. So
that is really cool. And one of the things that just me being new to the whole world of being a validator, when I was listening to your Twitter Spaces, you mentioned that people can actually run multiple instances of or multiple validators basically on the same machine.
Yep. So the minimum specs that feeds right into the next thing, which is very important for people to understand. The minimum specs to become a validator is, the recommendation is you run 64 gigabytes of RAM. You got to run at least 2 terabytes of SSD hard drive. Like most computers come with SSD. So it isn't like you have to try very hard.
2 terabytes seems a little small, like in today's terms.
It's so easy to get. So it's not like you're stretched trying to get 2 terabyte. You can get 8 terabyte SSDs like off the shelf. So the minimum specs for like 2 isn't, I mean, my computer has 1 terabyte, my laptop, which I don't nearly use enough. But you can easily get 2 terabytes. Sometimes it costs you like $100 extra or something, but it could even be standard with the system you're buying. Then, so you have 64 gigs of RAM. Now, the bare minimum, absolutely bare minimum you could possibly run with Aragon and Prism would be like 32 gigabytes, or with Prism and Geth, which is my recommendation and kind of the best way you should do it is, if you're going to be a validator, you should run Geth, and you should run either Prism or Lighthouse. It doesn't even matter. They work the same. I have a video that goes over how you do both. They function exactly the same. They're very easy to set up. So it doesn't really matter which version of the consensus client this is a beacon chain client you run. It could be Prism, which is Golang, or it could be Lighthouse, which is Rust. Doesn't matter. But for the execution environment, which is Aragon or Geth, it really does matter. And so it's very important to understand the details. So Aragon is by default an archive node. It has less than 3 terabyte database, but it takes significantly a lot longer to like actually sync up, weeks to sync up an Aragon node. So an Aragon node is great for teams that are going to run RPC endpoints, teams that need archive support for their apps, say like wallets, analytic platforms, explorers, right? The Block Explorer have an archive node, like that kind of stuff. Aragon, great for that. And then great for RPC endpoints because it has all the archive data already, and a lot of developers already need that data, and it's already there for you. So great. But as a regular validator, Geth has 700, slightly more than 700 gigabytes of storage need. And then you have the Beacon Chain client, which is Prism or Lighthouse. It's going to be tens of gigabytes, maybe 100 gigabytes max, depending on the size of the Beacon Chain. So it's actually less than 1 terabyte. But then it's going to, over time, you're going to go over the 1 terabyte range. So you need to have more than 1 terabyte. And it'll be easy to get 2 terabyte. So you're actually like, you're good for another couple years, right? So it's taken, for the Geth database, it's taken 7 years for Ethereum to get up to the point where you're using like almost 1 terabyte. It shouldn't be, you should be a couple years before you have to worry about it. Your SSD hard drive is probably going to go out before you exceed the capacity of that SSD drive to be a validator, right? And you're probably upgrading your computer by then, right? 3-4 years. Hey, I'm going to upgrade my computer, no problem. Your SSD drive probably still working, like no problem. So, and then your CPU is the other component. Normally that's like paired with RAM if you're buying it. And if you have like 8-10 cores, that's fine. It's when you first do the initial sync is when it's really CPU intensive. But then after that, it's not really that intensive. It's more RAM intensive than anything. So you need a minimum amount of RAM so that, not to get too technical, but you get the blocks in, you get the headers, you get the blocks, and then the client has to build out the database. So it uses RAM for that. And then so it takes whatever RAM you have available in chunks and then writes it to disk, SSD drive, and then goes back, clears out the space, and then writes more to disk. It's going back and forth and go back and forth. Doing that. So the more RAM you have available to you, the faster it can do that because it can store more data in RAM and less swapping back to the SSD drive. The bare minimum, like I said, was for Aragon, it's 32 gigabytes of RAM. You're probably not even going to get it to fully sync up with less than that. I tried. It failed with 16 gigs of RAM, so 32 gigs of RAM. And then the other comment was about multiple validators. The addition of validators on your hardware isn't a huge amount of overhead. So you have the minimum specs to be for one validator, right? Like I said, 64 gigs of RAM is my recommendation, 2 terabyte SSD, and then maybe a core, or you can go more, right? More is okay. Maybe you should do that, but it's totally up to you. You can run 100 validators on that. You could run really 200 or 300 actually, if you have enough RAM, right? If you have 64 gigs of RAM,
Pulse.
Pulse is the problem, right? So it's 100 validators is 3.2 billion PLS. Okay, if you're running that many validators, then you can probably spend $5,000 on hardware. So you're getting like 128 gigs of RAM. Maybe your SSD drive is going to be NVMe, which is the best you're to get basically in a production, like a retail space kind of situation. And your CPU is going to be fine and you're going to be no problem run it. So when you look at ROI, once we have actual numbers, the more validators you can run, probably the more money you can make. And then that goes into your calculation on what kind of hardware you get, how much money you spend on your hardware. One point that I like to remind people is the PLS that you put into the contract isn't a cost. You're simply moving it from one wallet to another wallet that you control. You're not giving it to anybody else. One of the big talking points is don't give your keys to anybody else. And in this system, you're not. You are transferring the PLS to a contract that you own the keys for. You're the only one that can withdraw that money from. When you do that, especially after Shanghai gets initiated on mainnet, you set a withdrawal address, and you set that withdrawal address to, like, say, a hardware wallet, Ethereum address that you control. So you can only ever, like, the 32 million PLS can only ever even go to a wallet that you control, and you have to generate the withdrawal file, which is just a transaction to allow you to withdraw the money back to the wallet that you control. And there's nowhere in there is anybody else doing anything for you. You have to do it, and you're talking to the code, right? You're running a validator. You're doing the transaction yourself. You're generating the keys yourself. All those things that we like, right? It's the reason I like crypto, because I can do all that myself. I don't need a third party to help me.
Yeah,
because I can educate myself and run my own hardware.
Gamma. So do you think like the standard pre-built gaming computer that should be like sufficient, right? Like a
Should be
$12 to $1,500 gaming computer. And how
Yeah.
many validators do you think something like that could potentially run?
Yeah, as long as it has the minimum specs, like 64 gigs of RAM is, pretty standard for, say, a gaming computer. And then
Yeah.
the graphics card doesn't really matter at all. It literally is just powering your monitor, right? It doesn't do anything for the clients, because it's using your CPU, it's using your RAM, and it's not a game. It's not minor, right? It's not even using your graphics card to do any of the work.
Yeah.
Because the amount of work it has to do really isn't that intensive. Because it's not mining, right? That's the whole point, right? You don't need to have a wall of the miners. You have a single computer. Like I have a tower that costs, for the minimum configuration, there's a company called System 76. It's similar to, like, when you buy any online vendor that you could get a laptop or a desktop that has Windows pre-installed on it. The only difference is this has Ubuntu pre-installed on it, but they're basically like Alienware laptops, like the really beefy gaming laptops, or even like a really beefy gaming desktop. And the only difference is it has Ubuntu already or Linux already installed on it. And that's maybe $2,000. Now, obviously you can get the price point down if you build it yourself. You can get the parts if you know what you're doing, and you can build it for like half that, basically, right? For
just go with
$1,300
instead of Intel.
Yeah. And then you can get the price point down if you just buy, they used to have Fry's near where I live, where they kind of went out of business, and I really hated that because I started building my own computers.
I think
I'd walk right into the store, and I just build it. Like right then, I just get all my parts in my cart, take it home, and build my own system.
Hey, Gamma, I have to ask, what was the theme at your Fry's? When you walk in, each one has a different theme.
Oh, I didn't even realize it had a theme.
Like when you walk into mine, there was like a big space shuttle, and like I had all the space stuff. And I think like there was another one where like they had like a giant pyramid when you walked in. You saw,
No,
you didn't notice.
There's a coffee shop in the middle. That was kind of novel.
Yeah, I just know that was at all the Fry's, and all the Fry's have shut down, I think.
ChrispyMan's here. Hey, how you doing, man? Yeah, no, yeah, they shut down, and I asked a guy once when it was clear that they were going out of business, and I was wondering, is like, it looks like you're going out of business, and they're like, no, totally not happening. I was like, well, half your store is empty, and you don't have any of the normal random stuff that I would like, because I'm trying to build a computer, and it was like USB cables and stuff. I was like, why do you not even have the basic stuff? You're forcing me to go to Best Buy instead of purchasing things from you. That's not going to be very good for you. And then a year later, they went out of business. And I was like, I knew that was going to happen.
What's up there, Gamma? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's up, man? No. So, yeah, it's very easy. I like to, we were talking about validators, and I like to encourage people to run them in their house or their business, or not in it. Well, really, you can run it anywhere. don't run it into a data center, although you can. If you want to run it in a AWS or DigitalOcean data center, perfectly fine to do so. But if you want to decentralize the network, you can run it from your house. Like I run a computer that I'm running almost 200 validators on GoAirly, perfectly fine.
Boom.
I'm not going to have that many validators on PulseChain. I'm not a whale. So, I do okay, but I'm not a 100 validator kind of person. But I can run tens of validators. So I'm doing okay. And I can run it with my own system here in my house. And I'll encourage people to do so. And like he was saying, you can go to Best Buy and you can buy a Windows Tower that's kind of a beefy gaming computer and install Ubuntu on it. You could run Windows Linux subsystem and you get the same thing. So you could totally do that too. If you bought a Windows computer, you can just have you can have Linux installed on your Windows computer and run a validator. You can do that too if you want to. I don't support Windows, but there's plenty of other people who know Windows, and I haven't used Windows in probably 15 years.
Question. Alex McWhirter said he was going to be building nodes, maybe potentially for people. What do you think about that?
Oh, you talking about Alex from Hedron?
Yeah.
So okay, so that's a you can package these in a smaller package with the minimum specs, and Alex is fully aware what the minimum specs are, so it'll be fine. Pre-built, they do it for Ethereum, and then so you buy it. It already has Linux installed. It's like a little package, and it has the minimum specs. But yeah, as long as the user experience is the only thing, is like he'd have to make it so that it'd be, I don't know, easy to install, right? So if the
like a little GUI,
if the clients are already installed, and then you maybe, I don't even know, I don't know what's going on with that, but usually the way these work, I can't talk to his, I can't speak to his thing, but normally in my mind the way it works is you plug this thing in to a monitor, and then there's like a UI already, and then it's basically like a dashboard, and then it has you go through, like, it walks you through like an onboarding process and helps you set up the software in a user-friendly way. What I have to do is I actually have to teach you some basic Linux sysadmin skills and like how to use a command line, and you have to learn what paths are, like where the files are on your system, and how to tell the computer where those paths are. And then you have to create some full files, like a token, so that each client can talk to each other. And then where do I put that? And you have to make some folders, and it's a little bit of work. Not that much. It's like 2 hours. You can get it up and running. I've actually talked people how to do it. Talked people through it like twice already on GoAirly. So I know that it takes about 2 hours or so, like one-on-one, which I'm totally open to doing one-on-one sessions. You just have to like contact me, schedule it, and then, obviously pay me for my time, because I got other things going on, but I'm more than willing to, like, you watch my videos for free, figure it out yourself. But if you really need some help, I can help you, like, 2 hours on a Saturday, and I can get you up and running. And I don't need your fees.
A consultation.
Yeah. I mean, I do a Zoom call, and then I walk you through the whole thing, and you're doing it all yourself. But I'm like giving you the commands. I'm like, hey, this is what you're doing. You do this. Oh, okay. I work through. Probably the hardest part is, like, people don't understand what paths are. Like, when you're doing command line on a Linux system, your file system, you have to understand your file system, and people don't understand Linux. And so I can help you, like, understand how to, like, configure the command to get it up and running
sometimes
pretty easily.
What people need, they just need it's like they learn in a slightly different way. So it's like having someone just kind of explain it to them versus trying to read it and interpret everything. Like, sometimes people just need that extra, human voice right there.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend that everyone watch my videos first, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to go into a one-on-one and you haven't even tried. You should go, you should learn, you should watch the videos, and then, then I can help you across, get 90% there. I can help you the other 10%.
Exactly.
And depending on someone's understanding of computers, I may end up doing or talking you through the entire process, or maybe I'm just giving you some tips on how to change the path to this. And then, the command just worked. So because, there are some advanced people in the community, but maybe they never used Linux before, right? They've been using Windows and they're like, oh, if I was doing this on Windows, I totally knew what was going on. But this Ubuntu thing, I don't even know what's going on with that because the file system is different. I was like, yeah, I totally get that. It's fine. So yeah, it just depends. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be helping in the Telegram groups and everything. So if you pay attention, you should most of the main questions, especially when V3 gets launched, should be answered already. And then there's the Twitter Spaces and there's the voice chat, and answering some basic questions. I'll be participating there too when I have time because I have other things going on. I can only spend a couple hours a day in Twitter Spaces. I don't have all day to be just lollygagging around. I got things I got to do.
Someone in the chat wants to know how much is the consultation.
Oh, it's like $100 an hour.
Nice.
No problem. I didn't mention that.
So one question I have goes back to I know that we can't really guess how profitable or unprofitable it'll be. But I know that being a miner was typically something that was not profitable for people. Is this more of a hobby thing where people are supporting the network out of goodwill, or do we know yet if Ethereum 2.0 has been profitable for people? Is it that like 3 to 5% of all of the coins are being inflated, or is it just 3 to 5% of what you're putting in individually?
So that 3 to 5%, that's of the stake, and then because the stake isn't a cost, it's not an ROI that you have to meet, right? So it's 32 million. It's not like you have to make 32 million PLS to break even. That's not a cost.
Correct.
You're moving the PLS from one wallet to another wallet that you control. So your costs are the cost of the hardware, the electricity, and your time. The PLS is just you're moving it from one wallet to another. So I don't consider it to be a cost you have to overcome. So it shouldn't be a part of the ROI calculation. Now, it is a limiting factor in you creating infinite validators, right, to earn infinite money, which doesn't exist. So it's a limiting factor. But so you have to look at okay, how many validators do I need to run on this machine for me to get a 6-month break even or a 1-year break even, right? So that's the calculation. So it should be pretty reasonable. If you're running one validator, are you buying a $15,000 computer and thinking you're good? Probably not. But if you can build it yourself and you can run, or maybe even have some hardware that you already own, and you can run a single validator and you meet the minimum specs, and Linux works on old systems too. Like a system can be 5 years old and maybe it's a computer that you didn't even use for anything else anymore. And you're like, oh, I can put a validator on this machine and it works fine. It meets the minimum specs. A lot of times what people will do is they'll buy like the motherboard's fine, the tower's fine, right? Everything is fine except maybe the hard drive is shot. So you buy a new hard drive for $60 that meets the minimum specs, and then slap it in there, install Linux, and you're good to go. It just depends. If you're really hands-on, then you can bring the price point down for your hardware enough that maybe even doing one validator is worthwhile for you. But if you're going top of the line, then maybe you need to run a few validators to really break even in a reasonable time frame. And that just depends on how do we calculate reasonable? Well, I don't know, because testnet v3 is not even out yet. So we need to find out what is how many validators are on the network, with mainnet, what's the price of PLS, so the US dollar price associated with PLS, and then what are my rewards? Like how many blocks am I generating per week? And then now you can start coming up with some math to figure out, okay, great, I could, if I run 3 validators, then I should break even within this time frame, right? And then I'm okay with that, right? Because it's all about break even, right? Because you don't want to be your break even's 5 years from now, and then you didn't even pay off your hardware that you just paid for because it's right. You overpaid for your hardware, but you didn't have enough validators to support it. And you can run 100 validators on one computer or 200, no problem. On Ethereum, I consider being a mainnet validator, but because of the price point and everything, I was like, I couldn't do it with less than maybe 10. Just try and get up there to the point where it's okay for me, where I think even as a hobbyist, it's enough validators to be worth my while to run hardware, right?
Hey, Gamma, there's a question in the chat, and it's from Far Out Aliens, and he's wondering, could there be any problems with data usage running a validator from your house?
Not really.
It's because you only need that 1 terabyte, right?
No, I mean, like the
Or-
bandwidth, he's talking about bandwidth in and out, the internet connection. You're streaming in YouTube. And so basically the basic requirements for, so if your ISP is really mad about you watching YouTube, then you probably have more problems than just running a validator. But the minimum specs for internet really is like, can you stream like YouTube without buffering? Right. That means your internet is fast enough. And now the actual number is like 80 megabits per second. Like, but nobody knows what their internet is. Like the basic package in the US for very bad internet is like 100, maybe like a single user. So the internet usage of your client is not that much. The blocks are 1 megabyte blocks every 12 seconds. YouTube takes up way more bandwidth than the client is.
I just want to say the chat, Daraj Moore, you're screwed. You are not going to be able to validate with your internet connection.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, so in this goes into another thing of like power, right? Like internet, there's internet is component, but then also like if my power goes out, then my internet goes out. And then I have like a cell service or whatever, right? As like a backup for, YouTube and stuff for my kids. But
yes,
you got to be in an area that the internet is somewhat stable, right? The internet's fast enough that you can stream YouTube, but your power in your house has got to be okay stable, right? That you can run a computer without it shutting off like every day. Like overseas in places I've traveled through the Philippines, and there are some places that the power goes out 3 or 4 times a day. And especially during some parts of your seasons, right? If you don't live in an area that has great power infrastructure, then you might be having a problem running a validator there. And then you might have to default to, like, say, a data center. Like, just because, your situation isn't one. But you can be a validator, right? You have the PLS, awesome. But it just, your house doesn't meet kind of, every day your power is going to go out. Well, you probably want to run it into a data center. But
I've got a related question, and then I know ChrispyMan has one too. So how does slashing work on ETH 2.0, and
sure,
and what is that going to look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple different components to that. So you're running a validator in your house and your power goes out. This is kind of the most common scenario, right? It could be a whole day. What do you lose per validator? You might lose 20 cents worth of, like you're leaking. They call it leaking. So you're penalized like pennies basically for not being online. Like the exact amount, it's very little of leaking, just not being online. Now, the only time that escalates is if the majority of the network, say more than 30% of the network, is off at any one time. And that means that there are epochs, right? Earlier in the conversation, we talked about 69% of the committees, the subset of validators, has to attest that the blocks are good, the slots are valid, and the epoch is valid, so it can finalize. Now, if there aren't more than 69% of those in existence on the network, like they're all shut off for one reason or another. Now, it could be a client bug, could take some of the network off. It could be like a major internet outage, or it could be, I mean, there's a few different, real, like, not imaginary horribles, like real reasons why that would happen. But that's actually kind of why you need to have multiple clients too, in case a client goes down, then you can just switch to a new client, but that's like, we're not going to talk about that right now. But you're offline and the majority of the network is functioning fine, no problem. You get leaked a little bit, cents per day per validator. So it's not nothing. You're still losing a little bit of money, but you can overcome that by just turning your validator back on and then being online for like a week. Depending on how many validators you run, you could probably make that money back, like no problem at all, right? Like a single block and you're good to go. Like the first block you create after you turn your computer back on, now you're back in profit again. And you're offline for an entire day, right? It's not a big problem. Unless a majority of the network, more than 31% of the network is offline, then it's a big problem because the network's going to try and more and more penalize people for being offline. So in that case, you're offline and the overall network is offline. You need to get back online because it's going to ramp up the fees. It's going to start slashing you and slashing you and slashing you until the network gets back up over 69% active. And then epochs start. It's a self-healing mechanism, right? That was actually, I saw it in action like a year and a half ago because Prism had a bug and it knocked a bunch of people off the network for a few days. And you could see that play out as the network tried to heal itself, right? But that hasn't happened for a long time. So the software itself is like more, more advanced, more mature now, right? But one thing that the second most common thing that would happen, other than being like just offline in general, is going to be you have a computer A and you want to migrate to computer B. Could be in your same house. Maybe you're going to go from computer A is in your house and computer B is a data center. Like you're migrating your validator keys from one computer to another computer. If you do not delete your validator keys from the first computer before you turn on the second computer, and both computers are running the same validator keys, you're going to get a slashing event. And that's a double sign. It's the most common slashing event that I see on Ethereum. There's a Twitter bot that logs like every time there's a slashing event. It happens on Ethereum mainnet every month and a half, every 2 months. So you can get kicked off the network for that. You can lose depending on how long it goes on, depends on how severe it is. And then if it happens long enough, say hours, days, you'll lose half of your Ethereum, or in this case, PulseChain. You're pulsing your thing. So it'll go from 32 million down to 16 million, or on Ethereum, 32 to 16. And your effective balance goes to 16. As soon as it goes under 16, then you're off the network. Like permanently. Like you're kicked off the network. Now you still have the 15 point whatever PLS. You still own that. You can still get it out. But now you're no longer a validator and you lost half of your money because your validator was not following the rules. So just follow the rules. One of the easiest ways to do that is to never have your validator keys on two computers at one time. Like on the computer, right? If you're moving from one computer to another computer, then you delete your validator keys on this computer, and then maybe you have them on a USB drive. The validator keys are not your seeds, right? Because those will be in a safe somewhere. But your validator keys are what you upload to your server, what you install in the Prism or Lighthouse client to allow you to be a validator. So you can have those on a USB stick. You delete them from the computer A, you install them on computer B, import them into the client, turn it back on. There you are. Now you didn't double sign. And that's a slashing event that happens more times than any. So you have to be worried about that. User error will happen. It will happen to somebody on PulseChain. The way I can see it happening is you had computer A, you turned it off, then you installed everything on computer B, and then later on you forget that computer A has your validator keys. You turn it on by mistake, and then now you start slashing yourself. You don't realize what's happening, and then before you know it, now you're slashed, and your validators are kicked off.
Ouch.
So, like, that's a scenario that's not imaginary. That can literally happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, very easily. If you're not paying attention, you don't like understand the importance of keeping your validator keys only on one computer at a single time. I mean, but it could be the same thing with say a data center. You have an instance, and then you do a second instance, but you don't understand that the validator keys can only be on one computer, and you have two servers in a data center at the same time, then you get slashed. So it's incredibly important that you manage your validator keys as a validator, because you don't want to like lose money, right? You want to be a validator.
Right.
You want to make money. You want to grow your stack. You want to support the network. So just don't have your validator keys on the two computers. And if you're offline for a day, doesn't really matter. Just turn it back on, get resynced up to the network, and start earning those fees again, and you're fine. I was offline for a whole week and a half on my computer here on Go Early. I lost, I was in the negative for a little while, but then it's fine. After I generated a few blocks, and now I'm net positive again in my fake Go Early money.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, that's a great explanation. Now, ChrispyMan, you had a question?
Yeah, I was gonna joke. I'm sorry I was late there, Gamma. I was gonna ask
problem.
you repeat everything for the first hour. So you get it.
Luckily, it's recorded.
Yeah, I know. I'll go back and do it. How you doing, buddy? I haven't talked to you for a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Great. Yeah, you're off doing great things.
You too,
Getting
man.
into the chat.
You too. Yep.
Getting
Sorry, my
around.
wire is there.
Cool.
Hey, here's a couple questions for you. Well, more kind of like statements. Maybe you can like correct me if I'm wrong about this, right? So we currently do not know what kind of rewards we'll get or what kind of level rewards. Is that true at this point?
You can guess. If you look at Go Early Ethereum, which is the best, example that we have, then you can see the total number of validators it has, and you can guess how many validators PulseChain would have. You can see the fees that are generated. You can see the percentage of blocks that are filled, because the amount of transactions in each block determines what your reward is. If your block is 100% full, 99% full, no such thing as 100%, and then you're getting like the max fee. And so there's examples in my validator where some blocks are like 0.02 Go Early Ethereum, but then I'll have a block that's like 1.7 Go Early Ethereum.
Nice.
Because there's a bunch of transactions in there that paid a huge fee for some reason, but it's testnet, so who knows what's happening.
And that'll be a function of how many validators exist, right? And versus, well, I'm sure it's more complex than this, but how many validators, how many transactions are being put through?
Yeah. So the number of validators on the total network will determine how often you produce a block, and you get paid when you validate a block, create a block, you pay yourself the reward. So that's also one of those bullet points of paying yourself a reward for doing work. You do the work of being online and producing the block, and then you pay yourself the reward as a function of doing that, right? So you pay yourself for being a validator.
It's not considered a fee collection.
Well, I mean, you get the other members, like the transactions have a fee, have a tip that's assigned, and you get that tip, and then you also get a block reward, and then so you package all those transactions with that tip, the fees, and then you give it to yourself as a function of giving, as a feature of giving the creating the block, right? So you mine the block, you create the block, and then you give yourself the fee based on the rules that are set within the system.
I got a quick question.
Let me finish my thought.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is that okay, Bruce? Let me run through it.
No,
because
sorry.
it might answer some of this stuff. I will validate you. Well, you watch. We're going to validate each other later. Hey, so okay. Function of price, right? Function of demand and supply of validators that'll determine ROI. So today we can't really figure out ROI, right? I mean, it's just going to be.
We don't have the variables. Because it's like, it's the price of PLS, it's the number of validators on the network, and it's how many validators you have. because the function the way gas is calculated is the same as Ethereum, right? The block speed is 2 seconds faster, so there's slightly faster blocks, but that's not like that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
So
So is this? So I'm thinking this because somebody asked this question in the chat, and I turned it back over to Bruce. I'm thinking of it this way. First off, this is a job if you do it right. If you have expectations of anything coming out of it, you really do need to manage it, make sure it's up, and do all your work with ROI, etc. So there probably could be some people that want to validate just to support the system. There's probably some people that want to validate to not get gains today, but just to stockpile, because the sunk cost is going to be your equipment, right? And once you have your equipment sunk, it's not like you're going to have like a huge power requirement that you're not already using, right? So you might have a small amount, right, from these things.
I mean,
running.
it's a regular computer, so
Regular
huge.
computer.
Well, we're burning for whatever amount of power we're burning right now. It's less than that.
So if I think of it that way, so I could go validate because I just want to support the network, make sure we always have more validators than we ever need. I could do it because I want to just stockpile some extra pulse. And in that case, the idea is that someday, right, maybe really high in price because I'll appreciate. And then
by then you can withdraw it, so it won't be a problem.
And then there's the business people, right? And the business people got to figure out what that sunk cost is going to be for these machines that they're going to run, because now they really are running it as a business. And they've got to make sure that they even include, I got to replace it every 2 years or every 3 years, whatever might happen, right? Or I need to have redundancy, like some of the stuff you're talking about. And all of that needs to be developed through that understanding the ROI. Because I just try to get my head around what does it look like to have, 32 validators. It's about 1 billion pulse, right? So I think that's about the number. And so that's quite a bit for someone to come up with, right? The average Joe. And then it comes back to that ROI. We just don't know. But if you're the average person out there, perhaps you're not going to be validating, 30 or 40, having 30 or 40 validators. And that leads me to the question I was getting after. Do we have eyes on what validation pools might look like? And is that even going to be a thing?
The only way that works is if you give your money to somebody else, like on Ethereum. So you have to give yourself to a third party. You have to give your PLS to a third party in the hopes that they don't lose you the keys, in the hopes that they do a good job and they actually give you back the PLS with your reward instead of doing it yourself. So the preference would be you do it yourself. Now the price point could be like, this is the thing that came up earlier today when I got in a talk. Now that it could become a situation where PLS becomes more expensive over time, and the threshold, right, to become a validator is higher than what people could really afford to do. So they would be tempted to do this whole give your money to a third party and then they can pool it together. And
sure.
I'm sure there's companies that if it's worthwhile for them to do that, I'm sure companies will be formed to do that. Sure. Right. So, and then maybe those people will go to other avenues. Like the other software that I actually kind of educate people on is like Teller Reporters, which is you stake Teller. Well, it's not called Teller, but it's like the native Oracle that's gonna be on PulseChain. And the price point for that would be much lower. And it's like, okay, great. Now I got priced down on being a PulseChain validator. Well, this Teller Oracle network is also a staking platform where you are aggregating price feeds and you can earn rewards. So it's like, a lower threshold to do that kind of thing, right? Lower hardware requirements and all that. So.
All right, cool. And just for Runsky's in the chat, Runsky's. The reason I said that was Gamma when I first came on was mentioning maybe somebody would do a whole bunch of validators, and I think the number of billion came up. So I just divided 1 billion by 32 million, and that gives you roughly 32 validators. It's a meaningless number. It was just me doing math to figure out, well, what would it take to run enough to get ROI? But he answered that question. So
Yeah,
all right,
I mean,
all right,
I
Brizzy,
think it's
I'm
easily.
sorry.
I think the total. I mean, not the total number, but like a reasonable number is like 100,000 validators. Seems like a pretty decent number of validators. Now, I don't know what the real number is going to be. Depends on who runs a validator, but it's a reasonable number, which is a lot less than what's on even on a go early. So,
I just had a question because when we went from the Binance switch to the Ethereum 2.0, I saw a lot of people wondering if I wasn't sure if it was made public or not, or if it's public information. Is PulseChain still going to be deflationary from the get-go, or is it going to have that inflationary plus burn model like Ethereum?
that's public. It's inflationary, so you get a block reward at some number, right? We don't know what the number is,
Okay.
and there is a one EIP 1559 burn, and it's not really a 25% burn. It's more of, instead of the Ethereum inflation number is translated to like the PLS, right, is a much larger number. So there's like a multiple there of like Ethereum to PLS. So the reward you would normally get for being a validator, it would be like 25% less than what it would normally be when they did the translation between, like, there's the multiple of we have to multiply the block reward by the amount of additional PLS that are exist in the Pulse chain, right? It is like the 1.2 million multiple, right? That we were all familiar with the AMM bot coming through and doing all the liquidity pools, and there's like 130 trillion PLS as opposed to like 115 million or whatever the number is, right? It's
Yes.
like 1.2 million, multiple, 1 million multiple. So the block reward has to be adjusted by that amount, and then just receive 20%, 25% less. So it gets to the same point, but it's like a slightly different mechanic, right? Because you're not burning supply that never existed. It just never existed to begin with. So it's basically like, that 25% burn that was promised in the prior version of PulseChain is coming over, but it's coming over in a different mechanic, and that's public information. That's not secret. Now, although the understanding of like the actual mechanic, like, I just want to make it perfectly clear, the end goal is the same. It's just the mechanic to get there is slightly different than before.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? If that's understandable.
I kind of like that inflation plus burning mechanic, because it kind of inspires. It seems like it's inspired from like the real world systems of needing new money to come in, but it's also getting rid of the old money. It's almost like a velocity of money type of situation.
Are you saying you're a fan of that game theory?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, if it wasn't
Beautiful.
clear of what I was trying to say, yeah, that's
Beautiful.
what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, nobody knows whether, what the sacrifice addresses are going to do, but it'll be really curious to me to be able to see once, once PulseChain goes live, to see if any of those coins end up doing their part to validate or not. And we've seen examples of OA and sacrifice coins, like, acting in the big payday in the PulseChain sacrifice, and we've seen instances where the coins don't act in the sense that they that no new stakes are being created and that sort of thing. So that'll be some bit of game theory that'll certainly play out. And I don't expect.
We don't know how many
comments.
validators are going to be, and then of course there's a large entities that have PLS that they're going to be a certain amount of validators, and the community is going to have run a bunch of validators.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Do you have any predictions on the number of like community validators that would be run? Like, do you expect that?
I see. I based my 100,000 validator number based on kind of how much PLS the community has, as kind of like, hey, this is the number of PLS the community generally has. So this is around like how many validators they could probably run. So like
cool.
I like around like 100, 2,000, 100 to 200,000 validators. Seems like less than that. Seems reasonable. Because not everyone's going to run a validator or want to. So what's that percentage? Really, the question is like, what's the percentage of community that's going to run a validator?
I did a survey here on the channel, and I got to tell you, these surveys of my audience keep surprising me. Like, for example, last night I asked how many people already have a hardware wallet. I was blown away that 170 people responded. 81% of people already had a hardware wallet. That's amazing. So if you don't have a hardware wallet, get out there, go in the description and click on my link to get one. Tonight, we've had 199 people have answered the question, do you want to be a PulseChain validator? And again, I'm surprised that the people who say yes, which maybe not everybody's going to have the skills and the hardware and the upfront cost and everything, but just of what people have responded, 46% of people are saying yes, they want to be a PulseChain validator. So that's a really high number to me.
It does seem like a high number.
And what's really great.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying is like what's really great is being a validator, and then the PLS you stake, it still belongs to you. You're just moving it from one wallet to another. So you're still holding it. And you're still holding it for the bull market, but you're also generating some rewards for yourself by running a computer. And maybe you already have a computer. And so it makes perfect sense to support the network, help the security of the network, and you're still holding your tokens, your coins.
Yeah. That's really cool. Shout out to the audience, for being so interested in running your own validators. And GammaDevOps has to sign off here shortly, so maybe
I got a couple minutes. I wanted to just please shill my link here. Like the most important link probably is my Substack, GammaDevOps Substack.com, and then my Twitter account, which is at GammaDevOps. And I would say is like I have a 5-part validator series that you can listen to me talk about how to be a validator on Goerli, which is very similar to PulseChain. I also have a video on how to be a teller technology on PulseChain, because the technology is coming over, but not really teller. So I have a 30-minute video on that as another option of being, if you're interested in being a validator and running hardware for PulseChain, another way to do that is to be a teller reporter, and you can be part of the decentralized Oracle service that's going to be launching natively on PulseChain, and it's a key component for, say, liquidity, like the liquidity forks, right? You have the liquid loans, Power City, some other of the financial applications we like to use and talk about they need oracles. And I like that because it's native to PulseChain, no bridging, right? Limit bridge risk. And unlike the other EVM networks that have launched recently, on top of us having like 150 projects that are going to be launching on us, one of them is a native Oracle platform, which I find very interesting. And since I'm interested in the technology and supporting infrastructure, I try and make people aware that that's a thing that we'll be able to test on V3. And then also you can test being a validator, of course, on PulseChain. And I'm here to help you answer questions. I have a Telegram group. If you didn't know, you can ask me specific questions, right? Technical questions. It's GammaDevOps chat in Telegram. And then, of course, my Twitter and my Substack and everything. So a few resources for the community.
Yeah. I've got your link tree, and your Twitter and your Substack are all being dropped into the live chat now. And look, we have 310 people watching. We have typically 4,000 to 5,000 people watching the show weekly. So whether you're watching on the replay or if you're watching live now, please just go subscribe to GammaDevOps on YouTube. We want to get him over 1,000 subscribers because that's a really cool milestone. So please go do that now.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm doing some more live streams. I'll be doing a live stream with KG this Friday, and I'll be with Corey Costa, right? Corey Meatball.
Awesome.
In April.
Yeah.
So I'm just going on the streams, whenever I get invited. So that's cool. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and coming on to explain all this to us. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.
The man Gamma.
Awesome.
Hey Gamma, I got one super.
Okay, one question, and then I gotta go. My kids want to go to sleep.
Just real quick, just everyone wants to know that after V3 testnet launches, how much longer does that need to test for?
That's not.
Yeah, that's a question Richard's have to field.
Yeah,
on that one.
That's a good question for Richard.
Yeah, Richard is tweeting a lot, doing some really great communicating.
Yeah,
I love it. Follow him if you're not already.
Richard Hartwin on Twitter, everybody.
Yeah.
Go hit the bell notification there.
Thanks for coming again, Gamma.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Gamma. See you later, bud.
Bye.
We're going to stick around here. We have 308 people watching live. Hit the like and subscribe button. Usually we run the show for 2 to 3 hours. And so we're about an hour and a half in here. And there's still probably a lot to cover with what's been happening in the past week. The price of HEX keeps, running up into the stratosphere. Just a lot to cover. I really appreciate all the questions and Brisology. Look, I wanted to ask him the same thing. So we were all thinking it. Okay.
Everyone wants to know how much longer after it launches.
Yeah. Well, that's a point of speculation and a point for Richard Hart to be able to announce himself. So don't want to steal any of the glory there,
Well, I'm sure it's 2 weeks. I'm sure that's the answer.
2 more weeks.
More weeks.
Are you a wrestling fan, Bruce?
Or
were you? I should say it past tense. Or were you?
Why?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about validating you somewhere. So I just figured. I don't know if you're a fan. No, I'm sure we got some fans running around.
I'm surprised that the poll was so even. I kind of expected a lot more people to be like, yeah, I want to be a validator, not really like realizing what it takes. So I'm surprised that like half the audience was like, nah, I don't want to be a validator.
What did you think it would be? You thought it would be
more like
more people would
like,
not.
No, I
more
think
people
more
would
people
or would not.
would answer yes without realizing like what it takes.
You think that little of this audience is the best audience in crypto?
Now they know what I really think of them.
You're just trolling them, I'm sure. I'm surprised it's so high that people are interested, and of course not everybody who says they're interested is gonna end up being a validator, but I think we've got a really smart audience here. I again am shocked that 81% of people had hardware wallets already. I have a link in the description. You can get a Trezor. I just got a huge shipment from Trezor today that I'm going to give out to some of my onboards who have put in more money, because PulseChain, even if you're in disbelief, and this is probably what I'm going to talk about on Hex Therapy on Tuesday. We have been in such a brutal bear market, and we've been waiting for PulseChain for so long that we're not going to believe it when it gets here. We're not going to believe it when it's a week away or something. And so we're going to be suffering from massive disbelief, I think. And But look, now's the time to get your hardware wallet. If you're in the 20% of people who don't have one yet, and you have a significant amount of money in crypto, yeah,
they're going to be in massive disbelief. And what happens right after the disbelief stage?
hope.
No.
Number go
Bull
up.
market. Well, yeah, probably hope. But the start
That's
of
the
the
Wall
next bull
Street cheat
market,
sheet. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
we also, we do have a minor update in my project. I see somebody asking in the chat. We figured out this week how much gas it's going to cost in order to create your smart vault. And I was pretty pleased with the answer. It was less than $1.50 when Gwei is 40. So
nice.
that's
pretty good.
yeah, that'll be really nice to give yourself
That's
an
actually
extra
really
life.
good.
Yeah. And then of course on PulseChain it'll be less than a penny. But because we already know what the blockchain code looks like, it can be calculated, down to the milligwei or
Is
whatever.
that just to start the time lock, or is that to end it?
That's to create the vault, and that's where really you're spending the most gas.
Okay.
When you're just creating a new lock, I think it's much less than that. So it's very efficient. I'm proud to say. Yeah.
I was experimenting a little bit with liquidity providing.
Where are you?
Yeah, and I had kind of a positive experience with that, and
that's a good thing, man. I want to hear about this some more. I'm sorry to interrupt you to tell you I want to hear you talk.
No. So it was kind of like it feels like a really nice way of selling your assets without being like a dumper. And with my experience, I put up $5,000 on each side, right? And then as the price of Hex went up, it basically I ran out of Hex, so I sold all the Hex, right? And so I ended up walking away with I think about $12,000 in USDC.
Nice.
So it's like it kind of sells your Hex at a gradually higher number, and then I walked away with about $380 ish in fees collected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in total, it cost about $75 to start the liquidity providing, to collect the fees, and to remove the liquidity. It cost about $75.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's interesting. It's like it was kind of cool, kind of fun to play with it.
And that was a V3 position, I take it.
I think it was on V2. I believe. I'm not really sure. I was using the Uniswap front end. I'm not really sure which version it was using.
But you set a range.
Yeah, I set a range.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think here's the proposition. All of us should be strongly considering, right? Exiting out using V3, right? Or something like that, or if you want to do just straight liquidity providing. And I'm no expert at all, man. I've been learning a lot from Axis, and shout out to him, and from Sloth and some other people. Hexecutioner, another guy out there, is really good expert on this, because I never even tried to do LP, before. And but I was talking with Silver the Antidote, and it really resonated well with me, this idea that as a responsible Hexican, I should at least be considering that rather than pushing a button and dumping into the market. but that doesn't mean it's easy. It's not hard. It's not hard, but it's not easy to provide LP. And I think you've done it before.
It takes pre-planning, really.
Yeah. I mean, it does. And I did a very similar experiment, Bruce, this week. And I did something really similar. I went one-sided and I couldn't get out. I was trapped. I couldn't get out. They just kept giving me my hex back. And I just wanted to distribute the hex. But then I was like, oh, I see why people like this, because if you do know what you're doing and you do have a plan, you can start accumulating 1%, 2%, 3% a day. Now, I'm not suggesting that's better than staking at all. I'm just saying that I recognize that, just like you said, you can end up with $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in fees over the right amount of time. Now, of course, that creates a whole nother management of information issue. But anyways, I like the idea. I think we as a community should really be looking hard at doing that and getting our heads around it, because it also there's a little bit of trade-off, right? Because you got to do the work yourself. You got to make sure you understand it. So there might be a little trade-off with how quickly you can move on certain things. Like, I mean, if you dump, you dump. I mean, you get the slippage, right? And so the trade-off is the slippage versus the time it takes for you to execute your plan, on the LP side.
So I will say the unpopular thing of giving a counterpoint to that, not necessarily because I know what's best for everybody else, but there is another side to that argument, that the guys who are telling you the only responsible way to exit is to show all your cards to them on chain, that's not the only way to do it. And the person who's dumping they're doing a trade-off. They're extracting less value, but they're doing it in a way where they're not showing their cards to everybody on chain. And so I can see in different types of situations, when different whales are playing different games with each other, I could see where you could have somebody doing market dumps in like batches, basically, that is going to give them a better deal versus just setting a liquidity position. But I think people should understand both. And I think that people should really think critically before they like take a certain like moral narrative of like, well, you're not being good to the rest of us. Because if you think of the person who wants to accumulate cheaper hex, they want people to market them.
Yeah.
So,
well, I hope you heard my message when I said at least consider.
Yes, of course.
So I was not saying you have to do it that way. That's the only way to do it. But I can understand why, but I also had the same thought you did. Now, most times I'm like Mr. Little 10,000 hex guy, right? So I was like, yeah, Wales, if you want to outsmart me, goes outsmart me, man.
You
want to make me slip on 10K, okay? Go ahead.
And in case anyone in the audience isn't exactly sure what Maddie was talking about showing all your cards, is that someone could set liquidity to start selling, or even a limit order to start selling, a large chunk of hex, say at 25 cents and up, and then another whale could be like, all right, I'm going to market dump at 22 or 23 cents and kind of like mess that up. And so yeah, those are the whale games people that these guys maybe play with each other.
Yeah, and with everything that Maddie, what you said, so I'm not taking a counterpoint. Not that I would mind arguing with you. I see your point, because I thought about it as I was doing it, right? Like, everybody's going to see what's going on. I was like, yeah, well, if I walk around, past my front window too, so people can see my house. So what difference does it make, right? So, but understand there's probably some things to consider and risks and etc. But putting all that potential visibility aside, I think a lot about passive income, right? Because I am working now on the side a little bit, make sure I cover my bills and whatnot. But I'm essentially a asset seller, right? And so if you get to a point where you're retiring and you don't have income coming in, the fact is you're going to have to make that income somewhere. And I know you've spoken about this too. And it's got to come from assets. And so if I'm working it on a monthly basis, I'm looking at, do I sell stock? Do I sell, I don't have any CDs or bonds left like that, but, or do I sell crypto? Right. It's really comes down to those two things. Do I pull out of retirement, or do I pull out of crypto? And of course, we could have arguments all day about what you should do and how you should do it, but you got to decide, right? So if you're looking at crypto, again, planning, maybe this isn't what everybody should do. I mean, maybe everybody should have the right to buy tops and sell bottoms. I mean, that's fine. But if you're planning, that was a joke, Bruce. if you're planning for like a 2025, 24 to 26 high, right? That people talk about of a wide range right now. I kind of think 25, right? But if you're planning for 2025 for exit, this type of approach, you might be able to front run yourself, depending what you've done with your ladder, and ladder out what you're willing to provide for liquidity out into the future to meet whatever your nut is. So if you think you need to pull a couple $1,000s a month, you might be layering those positions. Of course, they're not locked. They're locked in, but you can change them. Anyways, they're just kind of thinking along those lines on, it doesn't have to be that you have to get it all right now, right this second either. So I'm looking for more advice and help on that topic.
Yeah. I mean, writing down a plan of like what price you might sell at, and having that target, you can always revise the plan later on, but it's better than something you're just making up in your head based on today's emotions. Emotions are contagious. And so if everybody's euphoric or, hopeful and all that, it's really great to experience those positive emotions. But when it comes to like, buying and selling, if you only base it off of how you're feeling that moment, how the price is making you feel, then that'll lead people sometimes to buy tops and sell bottoms instead of the opposite. And so I can definitely relate. I mean, today I wrote down a plan of what prices, would I be willing to sell my liquid HEX at, and now I get to see if I'm going to stick to it or not, if I'm going to revise the plan. And
dude, it's so hard.
Yeah, no matter it's hard.
It doesn't matter, because whatever number you pick, you can make an argument in your head that it's going to be higher later.
Yeah.
And so you're always fighting your sense of, it's greed, maybe. That's a negative word. But it's this sense of loss that if you sell at 50 cents, you're going to miss $100, right? Or if you, right? Because there are people there's people in the community saying, hey, things could go anywhere from all-time high to $100, right? And so,
So I think I can give I'll just give an example here from my list. So if if I'm looking at HEX in 50,000 HEX batches, then if I'm selling at 9 cents, 50,000 HEX is worth $4,500. And if I shoot down my list, if I'm selling at let's say 42 cents, that's $21,000. If I'm reserving, let's say 50K of my HEX to wait until HEX hits $1, that's $50,000. right? And so just simply skipping the ring or the step of the ladder of DCAing out of HEX, which of course you can do a DCA into something, you can do a dollar cost average out of something, and you can base it based on time, or you can base it on price, or more like a dynamic DCA, some people would call it. And so if I skipped the 9-cent piece of my ladder because I'm so bullish right now, then if I save that 50,000 HEX and, put it down there, doubled up on my dollar target, then that's an extra an extra $45,000. I mean, that's not trivial. And so now, does it ever get to $1? We don't know, but we're very hopeful. So and ChrispyMan, I know a lot of us had trouble taking profits last cycle because we did see the long-term vision, because we had practiced the side of, mastering fear, time locking, being long-term minded, and all that good kind of stuff. And really delaying gratification was a big thing that we all practiced. So,
and we also all wanted our doubles.
Yep, that too.
Of course.
That too.
Yeah. As we DCA in, especially in the bear market on the way down, as you're buying it, buying stuff up. I don't like the idea of selling cryptos for stable coins. That actually, when I think about that makes me want to vomit that we're trading real money for fake money. I want to, I want to change the culture to where we use these cryptos for goods and services. Unfortunately, the world that we live in is that, people are selling. The reason why we go down 85% is because people are selling, they're taking profits. And so, you need to take profits, maybe on the way up, I guess. I like to buy I like to DCA in as it's coming down in the bear, and then try to take a little bit of profit as the bull market really rears its head. And because you never know where the top is. And so I think that's I've always been notoriously bad about taking profits. I don't take profits.
Most people are. You're not alone, right? I mean, it's either you don't take profits ever and you let it go to zero, or you just never get off the hump, or you turn around and sell at a low. I mean, that's just human nature.
Or you just like me and you just don't ever sell and you just keep buying and buying and buying.
Well, that's because you had all that Bitcoin, man. That's why. That's what's
right.
going on. That's going on with that.
But with that said, one of the things, I've been through, I think 3 bull cycles, is that every time you have your bull cycle and then the bear brings it back down, it's always higher than the previous cycle. It's just kind of like the stock market, where it goes bigger and bigger every year.
Well, I think you probably can make that argument for the S&P, right? That over time that's been the case, but certainly individual stocks is not always the case, right? Sometimes they never come back.
Correct.
And I was talking to somebody the other day about why would I own any Tesla stock, because I bought Tesla stock at one point, and of course Well, I won't get into that story. Another one of those opportunities that I was like, I'm all at HEX. I'm glad I stayed in HEX, but boy, it was hard to watch that happen. You know, a lot of people made a lot of big money there, but
It was
I think,
so hard for me to not ape into AMC.
oh yeah, that too. But you know, here's the thing: is why did the price of Tesla stock go up? People bought it. Why did it go down? People sold it. Huh. I wonder, is that how things work? Is that how things work when the demand goes up, price goes up, and when the demand goes down, price goes down? I guess so. So pretty interesting, you know, that actually applies to the space that we're in. And I think sometimes people don't catch, you know, on to this stuff, you know.
You know, I used to think that this world was just so complicated, and the reason why nothing ever got fixed was just because of the, you know, the Rube Goldbergness of the world. But then I kind of realized that that's kind of BS, and really everything really is that simple. It really is about supply and demand.
It is, you know, I also lean another way. Listen, I can get pretty conspiratorial. I have my tinfoil hat here, but I'm not going to put it on right now. I can get pretty conspiracy-like, but you know, in general, right? My assessment is people are the same everywhere.
Yeah.
General, very general comment. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that, most times the reason things are kind of screwed up is just because people act like people, and they just do people things, and they look out for themselves, and they don't, you know, they don't necessarily consider the ramifications. It's not necessarily that there's always some well planned out scheme, because I'll tell you what, if I tell you what, hey Templars, if you guys haven't been able to figure out how to make your thing come true yet, it's been a couple centuries. So, I mean, you get all the technology, all the tools at hand, right? Because people joke about that, right? You know, about different organizations trying to control everything. They're not doing too good of a job. So.
Yeah.
Richard Hart is the new world order.
Oh, yes, I have my shrine.
I've got good news. Funding Jim will be joining us in 5 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the warning. I'm sure. Hey, while we're waiting, D-Raj had asked if we'd talk about the iron lung for a minute. And I shared it out to you. We can show everybody. I think we might have showed it one other time, but it is producing some interesting results. It's a new indicator that Mr. Lung came up with. You know,
Mr.
You know,
Pizza?
No, Lung, Mike Lung, or
yes,
yeah, Finbear. Everybody knows him by Finbear.
Finbear, that's right.
Finbear, yeah. So he came up with this indicator. It's really pretty cool, and it makes you think. So what we're tracking here is what we call the iron lung indicator. I guess we got to make up some backstory for that, but and the top purple line is the amount of hex needed to generate 1 hex yield per day. And
cool.
so you can see way back in 21, you needed a couple, 2,800 or more to accomplish that. And today we're all the way up to 4,000. So it's doubled in the last 2 years and a few months. So it's a variation on the TShare rate.
So 4,200. What is that? Hex generates 1 hex.
Yeah, 1 hex, and so it's in the form of the amount of TShares that you need to actually generate 1 hex yield. And the reason why you see it vary is because of the big payouts. Like these are the big penalty spikes. You see these big penalty spikes coming down. You needed less that day because we had big penalties. Yeah, because it's a little bit of it affects that. And so today to get 1 hex worth of yield, it's $350. And that's up. And notice it's much higher, right? It's up from 49 to 350. So it's about what, 7 hex from about 2 years or so ago.
How much did you say it was? Set how much?
It's $350 today.
$350. Man, I think about that sometimes, and it kind of blows my mind that it takes $350 to generate 6 times 8 was that 30, like 40 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for a 1 day TShare?
It is, Maddie, and that was the next thing I was going to say, because what you're looking at there is if you were just to do 1 day, and a 1 day, and this is mind blowing because I think this is very, very powerful, right? Because if you can let somebody do a 1 day stake and they won't earn 8% in 1 day, but they earn a return on investment equivalent to a 8%, 9% APY for the year. That's awfully powerful coming at it from outside of crypto.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You got to be a big boy to get a good return on a 1 day stake.
Here's Gary.
Welcome, Gary.
For
you
joining us.
You do.
What's
hey, Gary.
up on the gym? How you doing?
This is one of my favorite channels. I love. Sometimes I don't want to come on at all anybody's channel just because I want to really absorb what you guys are having to say. Really good stuff. Both earlier, GammaDevOps making his rounds. I think that's the next thing is once V3 is out and people stop asking about testnet, then they've got to be involved, I think, with validating. To me, I think I said it earlier on a different stream, was, Richard being on the throne and talking about Nakamoto coefficient, decentralization, all the buzzwords that get in front of some of these other people that are maxi about their own coin or cryptocurrency or whatever. I think that's really the next thing. Doesn't mean everybody has to be a validator, but everybody should be familiar with the ROI potential of being a validator, especially early in the launch of a coin, and also be familiar enough to be good communicators if they're not going to validate, because they're probably going to talk to someone else in the future that might want to validate. So understanding is important no matter what your role is or how you participate in the RH ecosystem. So I love when Gamma's on, when Crispy's on, when Brisology talks about providing LP and just having a basic understanding of why some people will find that very attractive. 1% per day, or whatever the narrative is that basically gets them involved, is super powerful. So kind of being a Swiss Army knife of what's going on in the ecosystem is very, very useful as communicators. So very cool.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yep. I like all those points you brought up there, Gary, because I think they're all important ones. About what's going on today, and just decide. I'm not beating the drum that everybody should go out and be an LP. I'm just saying that I finally took the step to learn more than let's just listen to people tell me to do it. I went and looked to see what it looks like.
We got a familiar face here in the chat, Axis Alive, who was on with Gary and I last night. We had great talks. He's asking, are there a 5, 10, and 15 year variant of the iron lung chart yet?
We do have the information for that. I haven't put it on this chart. But of course, those particular days or time frames are easy to come up with, because it will cost you half for 5 years and then a third for 10 years. So, but I get it. Yeah, you want to put it up there on the chart so we can actually see it.
Yeah, so it'd be a little bit over $100 to have a max length iron lung.
Yep. Which, by the way, if you think of it in terms of that, right, you could see how that might be a pretty good yield. I know the tiny numbers like that, it's just a different way to look at it. The tiny numbers like that might put people off, but if you do the math, you get to understand that that's only for 1 day. You're going to get 365 of them.
I like that. Yeah. That's a really useful thing to break it down for people and look at a different side of it.
Yeah. Well, I still think there's a lot of people that are missing the boat on yield. And I get it because I'm part of some of the conversations. I get it. I get why I would want to stay liquid at some times for flexibility. But I think there's a lot of people leaving a lot on the table by not locking up for even a small amount of time. I'm sorry, Maddie, go ahead.
I was going to say at some point, this community is going to have to figure out how to account for T-share years. That'd be something cool to do in a future episode, maybe.
So we will have to, we should just make that the Maddie. I don't know what we'll call it, but how about we'll call it the all-in indicator? How about that?
All right.
T-shares destroyed indicator.
Yeah.
It's all in. What are your T-share years? This is what's going on. I have that calc weighted already. And you did ask about it. I just didn't do it. So I will go do that this week before next week, maybe. I'll get it out, get a chart out showing that.
That'd be so cool. Yeah, because what I think some people are failing to realize is that it's not just T-share count that matters in the long run, but it's how long you have the T-shares. You could be a dolphin or a cool crab or something with a bunch of 1-year stakes, or with 15-year stakes, and the longevity of your staker classes is going to vary greatly when the count is the same.
Yeah, and let me throw it to you back to you this way, because I think this is how you pitched it to me. Is this could be a different measure for leagues, just another measurement for leagues. Now, why does this matter? Well, so for all those people who are super competitive, right, and they like these leagues, and I was one of those. Thank God Steph came up with that, or whoever came up with the idea. I forget who actually came up with the original idea and did it. I just want to give the right people credit, because I really did not like that low standing, and I was like, this is bullshit. And so I bought a whole bunch more to push myself up in the league, because I didn't want to be at the lowest level at the time. And anyway, so there's some psychology to that, but I think it's a good measure. And so to restate it, I could be trying to compare myself to another person like Briz and see that I don't know, maybe even FUD myself out about, yeah, he's ahead of me and he's got this, whatever. Not that I should really be coveting what he has, right? But I mean, but that's what people do. And but his T-shares, they might only exist for the next 2 years, and mine are for 15. And how you see that play out in the leagues is certain like sometimes they'll call it Dolphin 33 or Shark 21 or whatever. Some of them only go up in rank over time, and others only go down. And you can see that very distinctly, that's a function of T-share years or days, whichever way you want to say it.
Yes.
I like to say I'm pretty proud that I have monthly stakes. So that means I have T-shares that are expiring and need to be restaked every month. And yet my staker class is pretty much maintained. My position.
Nice. Yeah, Maddie's been working hard at keeping his too. That is very good.
Yeah. I saw that I was leaking out of my position, so I rebought my T-shares. That's what finally did it for me, was to see that, because it's nice. I mean, not everybody is rebuying their T-shares. You can see that when you look at on hexfire.io. You can see, I think you made it public, the percentage of the total number of T-shares that you own and how that changes over time. So that was really motivating to me.
I have a question. On hexfire.io, do you actually have a spot that you import an address and you do an analysis of an address holdings, or is it basically across all hex stakes that you're doing all your analysis?
Yeah, good question. So I'll answer your question first before I say anything else. So the way I designed that out of the gate was so that it has all stakes in it. People can put whatever addresses they want in. They can put multiple addresses in, and it'll build it. It'll look at them as if they're a ladder. And then, so what does that mean? Is you can do different things like cash flow or hex flow or stake flow or whatever you want to call the different terminologies, and look at how much should be expected to come out when, that type of thing. You kind of look at it in aggregate. That being said, that's not the most. It probably isn't the most efficient methodology, but it was the methodology that I went with in order to deliver what I had and what I was trying to get out there. So that's kind of where we are today. And so I've gone a little bit further on some panels that'll actually go and do your profit loss calculations based on dates and all that type of stuff on some of the pages. But yeah, the short answer is yes, that's how I have set it up. And I'm currently doing a rework of the free site, because the biggest challenge I have, just use Pareto, 80% of the people aren't interested in seeing the level of detail, right? And so I'm doing some rework to make the site more cell phone friendly and desktop friendly, with the option to dig deeper into more data.
So before I go further, I wanted Maddie to pick a number between 100 and 1,000. What's your favorite number between 100 and 1,000?
369.
369.
That's my favorite number too.
So now that you've said the number, I'll tell you why I'm asking. So the dollar amount of 369 staked for 369 days, the same number of days as the dollar amount. Mm-hmm. I've made this public. It should be public both on my other Twitter, but I've done this for 2 other consistent streamers, people that I respect a lot. And so one is Hexologist. Let me send the address. I'll put it it doesn't matter if it's private or public, but it's in the private chat if it's easiest to copy for all of you. And then you could put that address into App HEX. I know that's a place that you can put an address and you can look at data. You can look at it on this stream is fine. And if you have an input for hexfire.io or whatever, walking through that, I think that there are now 5 stakes. And the history behind the address is I had thought about it for a long time about like how doxxed do I want to be, how public do I want to be, all those kinds of things. Like everyone should be cognizant in crypto, in finance, in all kinds of risk vectors, especially if you have family and you're kind of in one spot all the time. There's things you need to consider differently than I need to consider in the same way. So I'm a single person. I really enjoy the diplomacy element. I needed a way that I could promote to some of my peer group in real estate that I'm not talking out of my ass about, like caring about this community. So I had seen that Hexologist had said he was going to do 555 days of streaming consistently before all of the other disruptions in his streaming habit. So he stepped away for a while, but he did make a commitment of 555 days. And I think I saw it like the second day after he had said that, like on one of his streams. It's like, oh man, that'd be cool if I stake something
to come out
$1,000 come out at the same time that his last day of 555 streaming was going to happen. So before that, I had set it, in other streams of my own, that I had taken 50,000 USDC. And when I was talking mostly to George Gammon and all these other people, I wanted to have this commitment that I could show them, both on stake or app or whatever it is, and say, okay, here's my commitment, or one of my commitments to the community and to the product that I was talking so much about. And so I took 50,000 and in USDC, and I market bought on August 5th, I think, the 3 stakes that are there, which are $10,000 at 1 year, 10,000 at 2 years, and 10,000 at 3 years length stakes. and then staked them. Like I market bought, and then I staked 30 grand. And I had said that the remaining 20 grand in the account was waiting for when PulseChain, and half would be market bought of PulseChain and half would be market bought of PulseX after the launch. And it won't be the same day, because I do think that there's going to be volatility all over the place. It'll probably be 2 weeks, as a guess, 2 to 3 weeks once it seems a little bit more stable about entry. But that's the commitment that is the remaining USDC that's in that account, or it was 20 grand. So right after, so Hexologist stake at today's price, or I haven't looked since yesterday, $1,000 staked was worth 2,400 or something like that recently. Yeah, so that might be the one, the 2431, right? Yeah, so it comes out on day 1501 of the HEX contract. And that's what it's earned as far as yield. That's its net gain as far as percentage of HEX on HEX. The price is based on the volatility of the price, but I think that's pretty cool to have that visible. And I think that the other three, regular main HEX stakes are doing quite well as well. Even though we went down to 1.8 cents, this was before it was 1.8 cents. I forgot the price. It was 5 cents whenever I bought. I can't remember. But anyways, so that's the history of that account, of that wallet. And then I think I said to Crypto7, the UK guy, I did a stream with him on March the 8th. And I asked him the same thing. And I said, what's your favorite number between this and 1,000? He liked 7 because of his channel name. Before he knew it was about days, maybe we did have conversation because he was saying something about he wanted it to come out during the probable peaks of the bull of 25. So $777 market bought on March 8th or May, whatever, the 8th, a week ago or whatever, and then was staked. And you could see that ROI probably in the same chart. That's the one that just happened, right? That's that one, 777 days or whatever. So yeah, so the HEX on HEX return is a nice visual. The price was $777, and now you can see it's 1,080 because of price movement over the past 3-4 days, especially.
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah, so it's a good graph. Now on yours, I'm going to stake yours today, even now, and it will be $369 market bought, staked for 369 days. I'm going to do it now, actually, so you can see it. Will it appear on that? I guess it won't, because it'll roll over tomorrow. Will it show on that?
Yeah, it'll show pending. Yeah.
Okay. Hang on.
Yeah,
while you guys talk, we'll do that.
Yeah, Maddie's will show up right away. Mine will roll the next day because I'm using end-of-day numbers for the staking data.
Yeah, and thank you so much for including me. This is really great. I was aware that you were doing it with Hexologist and Crypto7, so this is going to be really cool.
Well, what I want is I want you guys to have something that's a reference. That and again, I don't think that everybody should do the risk of doxing and things like that. This wallet was before there was a mandate as an American against Tornado Cash. So it's anonymized as far as where the funds came from. It is my commitment. It is funds from sale of real estate, but basically I still care about reasonable security while still being able to promote what I care about. That's financially locked in a contract. So let me do that while you guys continue talking.
Cool. Yeah, regarding the having your TShares and having them for a longer period of time and the compounding effects, I kind of looked up on HEX Daily Stats, and in July of 2020, the payout was roughly 3 HEX per TShare. So what that basically means is that in the last 2.5 years, the TShare or the HEX payout per TShare has doubled in 2.5 years. So that means if you get a TShare today and it's giving you whatever it's giving you, if you're holding it for maybe another 2.5 years, it's potentially the payout could double within that time period.
That'd be cool.
And that's just kind of like, hey, that's your money compounding upon itself in a way. And it's a beautiful thing,
It is.
as
a very
Mr.
beautiful
Wales would
thing.
say. If I could quote Mr.
Beautiful
Wales,
thing.
it's a beautiful thing.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, this is a nice thing that Gary does. You know, I like the concept a lot too. So all my kids, all 6 of them, are grown out of the house, right? And so they're not like little kids. I'm talking about teenagers, even little kids. I had a hard time trying to onboard them. And so I used a similar sales technique. You know, I created a separate wallet, funded separately, with the specific stake that I called the kid stake. I should actually go look and see what it looks like, how much it is. That's the kid stake, and loaded that onto Staker on everybody's phone.
Nice.
To try to make them believers. I made 3 or 4.
That's great.
Well, 4 of them are all hexagons, but of course I'll take the blame, I guess, right, one way or another. Whatever happens.
There's a question in chat from It's Fifth Son, and he's asking, pleb here, why would I solo stake when the perpetuals exist? Thank you.
Yeah. So the perpetuals are really cool in that they pool the gas fees, I guess, in a way. The word pooling, like the SEC doesn't really like that. But at the end of the day, you know, what commentators are calling it really maybe doesn't matter as much. Maybe it does. But at the end of the day, the point is that a smart contract is taking care of the gas fees. And that seems like a pretty good deal. However, what we've seen recently is that there's this rush to create more and more and more tokenized hex stakes. And so even there's been a crazy discount on DESI. So you've got to take that into consideration. And then you've got to take into consideration the fact that if you don't want to sell at a discount, and maybe sometimes there's a premium, so that's kind of cool, but you can actually end up getting kind of trapped at a loss. And then if more people come along and create tokenized contracts, and then when the contract actually ends, there's so many people getting coins out at the same time, that could be like a selling event. So there's trade-offs, and I think that for me, I've got some DESI and I've got some native hex, and I like, you know, playing around with both of them. But for yeah, that's my analysis on it.
Another thing to think about is game theory regarding all these contracts. They're kind of third-party contracts between you and your hex. And the fact is, while I do trust all these guys who are making them, none of them have come to fruition yet. So it's like there's a little bit of risk in making sure that the smart contracts are going to work.
They allowed people to, during the 2-week launch period, they allowed people to like take some out. So that's been tested, to my knowledge. Okay. So when people are reporting that, I think it's maybe not completely accurate, but I've heard other people like have that concern, and that would be a concern if they didn't design it specifically to address that concern. But
That, you know, I just want to say that's not my overall feelings. It's just more of like a devil's advocate.
There is smart contract risk whenever you're doing anything that's not native.
I think that's the way to state that, and I think people should do their own research, because otherwise we'll start tearing down having this discussion, because it can only go negative, I think, because in an effort to try to talk about risk management, it's going to start sounding like we don't like it.
Like, yeah, like a flood, like we're flooding.
We're not really trying to flood. I'll take the other ones on, because I got this question the other day too. Where, maybe it was with you, Maddie. Not the perpetuals, but the Hedron and the ICOSA. Why would anybody not buy cheap TShares over there, right, in the auctions? And so very similar. I'm going to stop at a certain point, because I don't want to open up the doorway to have a big negative discussion. But clearly today, if I'm going to go stake right now, just like we were talking about with Maximus, I can go participate in the auction and buy a stake for 30% off, 40% off. I've seen them a lot less, even less than that, for Quattro Cinco. So if I'm planning to do a Quattro Cinco, I can go get one of those stakes right now and own it right now at a huge discount. And so I think it's definitely a play that should be considered. But it has the same little different counterparty risk, but certainly is the same type of counterparty risk, that you've got other contracts that have to exist. You also have to rely on other markets to exist. And so my thinking on it, meaning if I have an HSI and I think I'm going to sell it to somebody, I might have to sell it to Briss. I'm gonna have to go actually find somebody, because there may not be a market, or there may be one. I don't know. I'm just saying there's a risk. And then the swap for ICOSA, or the sell back to ICOSA, great feature, and I loved it when we were at price ceiling, but I didn't love it when it was at 20% or whatever the number was, 30% of price ceiling, because that just proved that I needed to wait 15 years, right? Based on the cost of my HSIs. Anyways, so I think that's another area that people should at least look into. I'm not trying to send anybody do anything they don't want to do, but you should do the research on it to know. I certainly think Quattro Cinco wise, it makes sense to look at.
There's reasoning, and again, it depends on your interest in becoming, I don't even say the word sophisticated. It's not really sophisticated, just basically a way of looking at things. You can look at it for tax structure reasons. I like to talk about tax structure reasons, but you could sell it as a HSI to an entity that's newly formed. You bought it at a discount, basically discount price. You transfer it as your own asset, as funding, or as an asset of the company. You pay the tax on basically what its value is at the time that you trade out. There's all kinds of stuff that you should talk to a CPA if you do have a long-term belief in the redemption. And if you believe in the redemption, doesn't matter whether it's HSI redemption and all the other things that go along with that, like you just highlighted, or if it's one of the perpetuals. It's interesting because it's not really a liquidity or a trading, make money off of, trade between the perpetuals in a pool. Like some people are doing that. They're making a lucky side matched with a trio side or whatever, right? And they're playing a little bit of a fee game in between. There's not a lot of volatility until it's within a window of redemption. Then you'll probably see price come up to at least the asset value that it might hold, right? Or that it could be redeemed for. And, I don't think that there should be a reason that there would be matching liquidity to the underlying value inside of perpetuals until they are within that close window where people might say it's worth it for me to overpay a tiny bit of a premium, hex on hex, hex for hex plus, because of the redemption that might be upcoming in 6 months, and I'm willing to wait 6 months or a year, or something like that on one of these perpetuals when they're coming due in their window. And there's also a narrative for new founders of new products in the future that don't exist yet to effectively use part of their marketing to airdrop on top of a perpetual contract instead of a native contract, even if it's God whale, even if it's someone that probably won't sell until there's a future value could be even extracted. So dropping on top of a perpetual makes more sense as far as the contract, the actual HEX stake itself being, because then it can't be redeemed really. And again, smart contract for us, do your own research, find out about whether you can transfer or not into an entity, find out about things, especially if you're going to be in the future bulls of crypto or transition into crypto in a different income class, or wealth class, things like that. These are all strategies that people do to preserve and also to limit their liabilities and risks, right? So there's a complex conversation, but those are reasons that are good about perpetuals, good about HSI's advantage, especially when you're considering redemption. If you're playing the casino game of crypto and you're in and out and day trading, and I'm going to play LP and I'm going to game the system somewhere, it probably won't work out for you that well, just because you may get locked into it's not really redeemable, right?
Yeah, we run the same risks that you do with trading, right? Or very similar risks as you do with trading. Trying to catch the timing so it works out, and sometimes it's okay, and most times it doesn't work out if you're trying to do a lot of stuff. I'm kind of spoiled that way, Gary, right? Because I'm going to be here 15 years anyways. I'll just wait 15 years, and if in the meantime the opportunity comes up, I get a good deal, then if I want to play with something, I can. And then for just for what's the right word? Just to be transparent, I own all of these things, so it's not like I didn't fall down the rabbit hole on all of them. I did, but for me, it's a 1% deal. It's not, it's not a significant part of what I'm doing.
You can show on screen if you wanted to, Maddie. I sent you on Telegram the screenshots. I saw that the dollar value was different, but that is what I used for CalSwap. So I put in $369 of USDC. That's what it gave me on CalSwap. It shows that I basically paid fee of CalSwap plus the gas, which was around $3 on MetaMask. So I sent you 3 slides if you wanted to use those in the future as a reference. But that's the 369 pending that you showed earlier.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm honored to be one of the representatives of that now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it is part of the thing is in Silicon Valley VC stuff, they say things like eat your own dog food, which is, if you believe in a product enough to invest in it, you should be a consumer of the service or the good as well. Like, I don't like people that are, even if they're a television commercial and they're driving a fancy car and talking about the benefit of the car, but you never see paparazzi taking a picture of them driving that car. I'm like, marketing. That's not reality. So like, I like that element, and all the on-chain data that you guys show, pseudonymized and things like that. We're always going to reference if it's related to OA or God Whale or Rackham or something like that, right? So just wanted to do a small bit as far as that goes, and give credence to commentators like you guys that are streaming all the time.
Actually, Johnny Carson once got stuck in a DeLorean. He was one of the early investors, and that actually hurt the company really badly. But I think when it comes to HEX, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Johnny was, and man, that guy was on television forever. I grew up with that guy on TV. Yeah. And then there was so much turbulence. Damn, I'm outlasting long life television hosts. When I started watching The Tonight Show, I was a little kid, and it was an every night thing. I think my family watched The Tonight Show basically and fell asleep to it every night.
Well, hey, man, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think maybe we're in the same region. There was only 3 channels, dude. Right? Yeah. So we can only watch. Most people watch it.
One was religion. One was, and where I grew up, one was religion. The other 2 might be news and a television program. And you really didn't even change channels that often because I had to use a pair of pliers to, grab.
Because that stupid knob broke.
And then I remember it was a big deal when it was like, he's going to retire. Who's going to take his place? I think there was like Joan Rivers was always a guest for a while. Jay Leno was a guest for, pretty often. Yeah. So I remember all the drama about Jay getting picked, and then living through his whole career too on television. So cultural norm.
Yep.
Brisology, do you know who Johnny Carson is? Or was? You heard of him?
It's almost like he's talking.
Muted.
It's almost like he's talking.
Yeah.
He's muted.
My bad. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I know who Johnny Carson is. I was a big Conan O'Brien fan back in the pre-internet days.
Yeah.
I remember sneaking to watch David Letterman when he was starting, very, very starting, when he had like Monkey Cam and all these other kinds of stupid human tricks and things like that.
Was good.
It was scandalous where I grew up to watch someone so based.
Yeah, and Funkmaster Hex just said in chat, and now this is the new late night show. And it's kind of true.
I don't know. We can generate some comedy in action, so we can have some fun.
So today is actually the 1-year anniversary of Game Theory Gang, episode number 52. So I know we yeah, thanks. Yeah, we had to switch up the cast when David Feeder and K4K went on their own adventures, but I really appreciate you guys being here.
I'm happy. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be part of this. And I thank you for inviting me to be here.
Me too, man. Me too.
What number of weeks have you been doing this? I mean, not just the show. This
episode. It's been, I think this is week 120 for every Tuesday and Thursday night.
Amazing.
Yep.
Good job.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really an honor to be so consistent and to have people show up and want to learn and put in the hours learning. I don't know of many YouTube channels outside of Hex and crypto that for each view the average is 25 to 30 minutes of people paying attention. That's incredible. That's
pretty high.
Because it gets counted into your average if somebody watches 15 seconds on YouTube. So there are a lot of people who are watching hours and hours of the content, and they keep coming back because they're learning, and that's exciting.
I'm learning right now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
This is and I would also point out that this is how Mr. Beast became the number one at his craft. Was he would spend hours and hours with his friends chatting about what discoveries they could make when it came to understanding YouTube. And I know that kind of, our goal isn't necessarily just to be the biggest YouTube channel, but it's to really, I think, to understand Hex in a really deep way and to spread the word of that and be masters of that craft. And I think we're accomplishing that through our friendship and through our viewership and everything else. So
yeah, cool. I really like to think of it as everyone that has their own stream or just comes on the streams, we're all educators. That's really what we're trying to do for the most part, is just educate and help spread the good word, right?
Love it.
And I mean, the coverage is insane. I woke up this morning and I was excited about the price, and you can go to the Hex All Day Twitter Spaces. You can see the Australians doing their show, which is in the morning for me and late night for them, and just throughout the day there were lots of people streaming, and it was it's been really cool to see everybody's commentary.
Yeah, there's so many places to go to for content. It's actually kind of amazing, and actually it just makes me very excited that I really feel like we all picked the right crypto to get into and to be part of. I mean, There's just no other way to say it, to tell you the truth.
Did you guys see SJ's video today?
Yeah, it was emotional, huh?
Yeah. So for anybody who didn't see it, Richard retweeted a wild SJ doing a couple-minute video on Twitter, and it's really great because she sets it up as like, you know, the founder of Hex made me cry, like, you know, watch and see why that was. And of course, you know, people that could draw people in who, you know, think that the founder is a good guy or a bad guy. And
he
you know,
what to my lady?
That's right. That's right. And it was a really touching video that she did. I guess she had clipped where she kind of, you know, just was spontaneously bursting into tears because she was so moved by one of Richard's quotes when it comes to like his greatest accomplishment being the community, not Hex or not being a billionaire or anything. So that's a must watch for sure. Is the tweet from a wild SJ today.
I'm gonna check that out after this stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so did she buy that bus and restore it and go through that whole process, or was that just in the background and she moved into it to be mobile, or what's happened?
Yeah, she's converted it into like a mobile studio, and you know, part of her Hex journey is documenting. Apparently she got help organically from the community, and people taught her how to rewire the electrical, and she installed a robust electrical system in there so it can actually be a powerful mobile studio and living quarters and everything. So this has been part of her dream, I think, was to have a bus that's mobile like that. So very cool.
Yeah, I know that's I don't know how much of her life outside of the Hex ecosystem she wants to build a social media impact, but that is pretty popular niche on YouTube. Is they call it van life or liveaboards, you know, like bus conversions. I've done a couple of bus conversions, or actually I bought one that was a 1946 Silversides, which was a bus, Greyhound bus from the 40s, and a Navy guy, I guess, in the 40s had bought the drivetrain and the shell before it ever had become a commercial bus. So he bought the platform, and it, you know, in the 40s, coming back from World War II, there was no such thing as an RV. There was no such thing as a motorhome. This is where the Airstream and things like that came from, is because John Paul Getty had factories that built B-52 bombers and things like that for World War II, you know, for the war effort. And then when the war was over, those factories needed to have a purpose. And they were basically aluminum, you know, for aircraft and riveting, and where Airstream comes from. And a lot of these bus things also from the 40s. And I guess some, I think he was an E5 at the time in the 1940s. He came back as a veteran, or, you know, still active, but came back from the war, and he was a machinist. And he converted this bus into a living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, really nice. And I was looking through, this was like 10 years ago. I was looking through Craigslist, and I always look for things in the 1940s and 50s. And I just saw this picture, and it wasn't fully restored, but it was really interesting. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, this is one of the first like RVs, you know, because it was a handmade thing. It wasn't a mass produced thing. And it was up in Vallejo, which is the North Bay and the northeast side of the San Francisco Bay Area. And the guy that I bought it from had it for 30 years, and he was the second owner. So he had bought it from the previous guy that had it for 25 or 30 years and had built it himself. And the guy that I bought it from was in his 60s, or, you know, coming up on 70s. And he had, you know, gone on all kinds of family trips and raised his kids, you know, going on family trips in this bus. And it was just really cool piece of nostalgia. I started to work on it like mechanically. The drivetrain didn't have massive miles because it was never commercial. It was just for personal use. So it only had like 30 or 40,000 miles on it. And most of the things they had seen were, go up to see Mount Rushmore and things like that was probably their longest trip they ever did. But anyways, it was really cool. And I get to the plumbing areas to try to make sure that all the plumbing for the bathroom and the kitchen was going to work fine. And I'd never seen this kind of pump before, and I couldn't find, it has a certain fitting to it. It was hard, like for water flow and stuff. And I find out that it was actually off of a submarine because the guy had probably harvested it, or he was a mechanic or something. And he said, this will do for my bus. And he probably picked it from a Navy lot or something, Anyways, I had a lot of really cool history. So anyways, I love all of those. Live aboard, keep something going. They don't build them like they used to, kinds of things. So it's really cool when I saw her background. Maybe a few months ago, I knew she was living on some kind of bus thing, conversion. But that's always been an interest of mine as a side hobby, is conversions.
Yeah, those are really cool. I've always been into like the tiny house movement.
Yeah.
I was looking at these like 35-foot fifth wheelers.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, some of them are pretty nice.
Yeah, some of them have like televisions in them and couches in them and all your dirt bikes and everything you want to tow around, and it's really cool. Some of
I said fifth wheeler, but actually I meant like a full on like trailer, like home, not just like a toy hauler, but like, and I'm like, man, some of these things are nicer than my apartment. I'm like, dude, this is like really sweet, but then I'm like, but if I bring a girl back here, I have to be like, hey, I live in a trailer.
Well, you should talk to Tim. I think Timothy Benjamin, a Hexagon. I think that after like the first bull run in Hex performance, he bought that. He bought the Tesla that he got wrapped, right? That you've seen his wrap of the Hex Tesla, PulseChain Tesla, and I think he bought like a pretty high end, regular, professionally done. Mercedes Sprinter or one of these things that have been converted into a liveaboard. Yeah. So yeah.
Van life.
Yeah, like he's doing a van life thing. And I think he's done a lot of trips over the past couple of years doing it. And
that seems like a lot of fun too.
Yeah. I mean,
I thought that would actually be pretty fun if we got like 3 or 4 or 5 Hexagons. We all buy like badass vans and then just do like a month or 2 month long caravan across the country.
I think it'd be really fun. Like, I think that the Austrian and German people, the KSB people, I think that's what their Pulse Tour Million thing. They're going to do that again. And I don't know, maybe they should do liveaboards instead of as many hotels. But I've always had that wandering, that romance about highway life or something like that. It's kind of cool.
And thank you so much to Moondog for the $55.55 super chat. And the comment here, SJ's video is worth more than gold. Message matters. Literally, the messages we carry with and through us materialize our reality. And the points she made, go see and hear it for yourself. #community built on values. And then a top hat and a wand and a star and a heart, love and light, and then lots of currency symbols and other cool emojis. So thank you. Thank you for the super chat. And I just dropped the link to SJ's Twitter video in the live chat, so people can check that out.
That's awesome.
We got 250 people watching live. Hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to follow the other people you see here on the screen and our guest from earlier. And we want to get him over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and keep pumping up these numbers. Maybe we can go around and people can give their final comments, and then we will raid Randy Hilarski.
Yay!
Nice. Yeah, you want to start with me? I guess I'm on the top here. on the screen. So yeah, just follow the funding gem. Make sure it's spelled correctly. There's an imposter that throws an extra I in there, or people forget that it has 2 G's. Funding gem, spell it correctly. I'm in the same on every platform. So if you put it in Google, the whole page will come up with whatever platform it is that you're looking for. But what I'm doing now is I am regularly, I just got followed today by Mario Narfall, who's hosting these Twitter
Congrats.
all the time. Yeah. And you know, there's people like it and people don't like that he's following me now, right? But what I'm doing is I am live streaming when he does his Twitter spaces. And then I'm highlighting the people that are obviously the speakers, love them or hate them, like Simon Dixon, Patrick Bet-David, you know, if Elon's on there or something like that, then of course it's going to get the eyes and attention. And because it's streaming out on YouTube and I put the proper hashtags, it gets replay. If the people want to participate as far as hexagons or pulsicons or people want to get message out, I'm trying not to let people overly troll that breaks the engagement, because they will retweet things that they think are their smart words. And 6 months or a year down the road, their smart words are either going to be right or wrong about their finance comments. Right now, they're all talking about Silicon Valley Bank, you know, all the doom and gloom of, you know, zombies are going to come get us and hyperinflation. And if you want to, you can basically highlight a clip of whoever the speaker is, put the @ symbol, the hashtag symbol for their content. And then if it is something they like that they said, then they'll probably retweet it, or they'll probably, you know, highlight the YouTube clip, because that's easier to see and scan for than the Twitter space that goes 15 hours. Some of their Twitter spaces go 15 hours long, right? So it's better, is what I'm saying, as far as messaging. And then, yeah, I understand that some people don't like Simon harmed Celsians, or because of his advocation of Celsius. Some people don't like BitBoy because of his advocation of all the things he's advocated over the years that worked out terribly. And then he doesn't talk positively, you know, prominently at least, about HEX. So like, I understand some of that reasoning, but also I want to reach their audience more than them. Like, I'm engaging and I'm promoting and I'm helping them also get their message out. But if you highlight the clip, then it will take them to the YouTube that is the whole thing. And then while I see people in the Twitter space that are from HEX, I'm highlighting them too. They're listeners, they're not on stage, but they're getting their content and their Twitter highlighted also. And so probably you're going to get bleed over. People that wouldn't have never discovered your channel or your content because you're not on stage talking to 20,000 people like they have been the past few days, you're probably going to get eyes that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I'm trying to do that. So yeah, so follow Twitter. If you see me in the live space, in someone's live space, visit the live space yourself so that I can highlight your profile and get your Twitter in front of new eyes. That's what I'm working on now.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Hey, I'll throw this out there. Hey, last week I kicked off a DCA. I'm calling it a fantasy league on Wednesdays. So tomorrow's Wednesday. So tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time, doing a stream, and we're going to look at maybe a dozen different tokens / coins and what DCA looks like week by week.
Nice.
We'll pick an amount and compare it. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of fun. I'm gonna try to market out to other communities. Come take a look. Oh, I got to tell you, it's gonna look stacked, because everything that's green is HEX ecosystem. You know, there are a lot of things are green, but I mean, those are the ones that have gone up the most. But we'll be comparing Link to FTM to SHIB, you name it. We'll look at those and do this on a weekly basis to kind of keep track of you know, what it looks like to be DCing in 2023.
Nice.
because we know from looking at the previous ones, people could have bagged some serious dollars by just simply doing 50, 10, you know, 50, $100 a week, you know, and just using that methodology. Other than that, Maddie, I sent you a little link. I did change my Twitter. I'm HexFireIO now on Twitter. At
Awesome.
HexFireIO. Yeah. Yeah, it took me, somebody suggested it last week and I finally just did it. So I did that. And of course, I'm HexFireIO on YouTube as well. And so those are the two ways you can contact me. And then, yeah, that's it. And continuing to build out the Patreon and the work that I'm doing over there and collecting as much information as I can. So thanks for all the support, guys.
Yeah.
And then lastly, there's me. You can find me at Brisology on Twitter. You know, you can find me on YouTube. And yeah, you know, that's mainly it.
The YouTubes.
The YouTubes. Yeah, you know, I don't really have too much more to add other than that. And it's just been an exciting week. And I can't wait until to see what happens next week and this next coming week. So,
to the moon.
Yeah, this is it's almost too much excitement. I don't know if my heart is going to be able to take it. All right, guys. So simmer down.
Well, I appreciate you guys for coming on. I want to make sure everybody knows to go to hexpomiami.com to get your ticket. There's going to be a limited number of tickets. I'm, you know, capping it at 120. So go get yours now and get your Bitcoin conference ticket if you're going to go to that as well. That'll be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of networking and a lot of good times there in Miami Beach in the middle of May. And also, everybody go follow Richard Harder and pray that we get PulseChain testnet soon, because that'll be really fun to check out. And other than that, yeah, that's all I've got for you guys.
So how many days until testnet, Maddie? What's your commitment? How many days from today?
Minutes.
Days.
Yeah, exactly.
Minutes. He's saying
exactly.
Minutes. Everything's minutes.
Chill.
I'll hold my breath until it comes out.
I will validate you, Briz. Cut it out.
If it's minutes away,
I say 4 days or less for test.
Nice.
Hex Monkey got his ticket already. Beautiful.
I'm still sticking with launch in September, between September and December myself.
Yeah, launch. So you think that not playing that for months is?
I'd like it to be done sooner for sure, but I just thinking, you know, just experience with software always takes 3 times longer than I think it's going to take. So
I know me and Maddie had the same idea, because I was listening to you and I think Access Alive, and it's like we've prepared our hearts, our souls for a 2024 launch.
Yes.
But maybe that means it's going to come out like next week.
Disbelief. Yes, that's the phase.
Exactly.
And look, for people watching, I put a lot of effort into making sure that the YouTube description links are amazing. So if you ever are wondering something we're talking about, where do you go to get more information? Like Will is asking, where do we go to get more information about being a validator? All that information is in the links in the description. You're going to go to GammaDevOps on Twitter, Substack, YouTube, etc. Linktree. And I would also make a point that in the tradition of people who have watched every Richard Hart video, we all know to have our branding on point, to be the same name on different channels, and it sounds the same way it's spelled and everything. So if you need to go to hexsearch.io and look up Richard's tips for marketing and branding yourself, then you can pull up the clips that way. But I think that's all we got for tonight. We're going to have everybody go raid Randy Hilarski. Let him know who sent you, that the Game Theory Gang recommended that you go watch his channel. If you want to be a validator, I don't think you're going to be able to run a clamshell Mac like I have in the thumbnail. So usually the thumbnail is not misleading, but in this case it was. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Publish wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Publish wisely. I shake my fist.